Chapter 1860. Terendus's Lost Magic Sword. Eraser of Truth, Certified Holder. Warren Nicholas. The weapon has evolved from the prototype stage to the adult stage. Additionally detected that the weapon has a high degree of recognition to the user. Recognition has reached 71%. Under this level of recognition, advanced use is allowed, basic and advanced information is disclosed, and it is allowed to establish a higher consciousness connection. Type: sword-shaped magic weapon source: : This information has been sealed. Quality: legendary, adult stage, basic attributes. 1. Truth damage. Every attack will have a special effect of Truth Ignore. For individuals whose level is lower than the user's, Truth Ignore can reach 100%. For individuals who are higher than the user but have not yet obtained the throne, Truth Ignore can reach 50% to 99%. For those who are above the True King, Truth Ignore is less than 50%. 2. Telekinesis. With a certain level of auxiliary consciousness, it can stimulate the user's sword-type potential. It can also be connected to the user's consciousness to control the relevant magic weapon. Control speed, damage, consciousness strength, and distance are related. The following are the new features brought by the adult advancement. Tombstone Hilt. When the sword is wielded by the dead, attack speed plus 100%. At the same time, there is a certain chance to cause tombstone strike. Any death magic can be cast with the magic sword as a medium. Black Conduit can efficiently transport cosmic fluid to achieve a more effective truth cut effect. Eye of Will. The magic sword has condensed its self-consciousness into its eyes. Under the control of the mind, the magic sword can be required to act on its own, without consuming any spiritual power to control it. When holding the magic sword, the user can obtain the sword vision, which greatly increases the efficiency of slashing, and at the same time, causes a lot of damage to illusions. This feature can only be obtained by Warren Nicholas. Is this the adult stage? All the attributes are really compatible with me. The characteristic of Tombstone Hilt is that the magic sword can be used as a staff. Black Conduit should be the effect of dyeing it black. The tactile feeling is between rubber and leather. It should be able to control the energy transmission by controlling the tentacles to achieve a better slashing effect. As for the eye, needless to say, it is a perfect match with my magic eye. When Han Dong pulled out the magic sword, he immediately obtained the sword vision and showed a quite satisfied feeling. However, it's not perfect yet. I don't have much experience when it comes to using the sword. Although I can bring out the special effects of the magic sword, it's very difficult for me to bring out its true power. I still have to wait until that fellow, Count, returns with the true inheritance of the Holy Sword. At that time, I'll try to see if I can integrate the characteristics of the Holy Sword bloodline into the sword. If I can do it, then I can be considered to have perfect control. Count, you should have already moved, right? Don't disappoint me. Separated by several planes. Saint-level world Count, who had come here as the spokesperson of the Netherblood, was not targeted, and no one dared to target him. Countless bloodbats gathered in front of the most dangerous area in the world, the mountain pass known as the Divine Craftsman's Ghost Pass. According to the information he had obtained, the origin of sacred blood he was looking for was hidden in a sealed coffin of a divine craftsman. Just as he was about to take a step forward, he suddenly sneezed. This strange sign made Count vigilant. He temporarily canceled today's plan and flew to the nearest craftsman city, preparing to use their blood to enslave some craftsmen who could be used as human scouts before setting off. Back to Han Dong. Congratulations, Lord. Dr. Swollen knelt on the ground and opened his brain from the middle. The congratulatory words also came from the depths of his brain. It's a bit unexpected. I didn't expect this demon sword to like absorbing the energy of the borrowed spirits so much. It also integrated some of its characteristics. I don't know what it will become in the future. In Han Dong's eyes, adult was only the beginning of the demon sword's recognition of itself. There were more opportunities for growth in the future. Yes, Lord. The expansion of the prison world has been completed. I need you to inspect it. Okay, I'll go and take a look. the cell essence taken from Mr. Teacher's third incarnation, the phase walker, had tripled the size of the world. One-Leg Box, the foreground designer of the Dark Circus, was mainly responsible for the external transformation and expansion. Another one, Box Carrier Sova, who was awarded the title of world-class engineer by the Black Tower, was mainly responsible for the transformation of the command tower. At the same time, he would also assist Box in the external renovation. The prison world was finally divided into a four-ring structure. The different ring levels were separated by high walls, which were used to accommodate the prisoners in a hierarchical manner. The simple, low-level, and controllable prisoners were housed on the outside, and more dangerous prisoners were housed on the inside. The truly dangerous prisoners would be locked up in the command tower after a review and would be directly supervised by the warden, Han Dong. In addition, the size of the four-ring structure corresponded to the underground experimental area, and there were many complex underground passages. During the imprisonment, any valuable prisoner, once selected by Dr. Swelling, would be quickly sent to the underground laboratory for special research. The interior of the four-ring also had more complex activities, business, and entertainment areas for prisoners to have a certain degree of recreation and relaxation. Some useful criminal talents could be slowly selected through daily evaluation. In addition, One-Leg Box also designed a supervision organization called the Circus of the Sky. It looked like a circus tent floating in the air, floating irregularly in the prison area. Its internal members were personally selected by the warden. In addition to the regular supervision work, the Circus of the Sky would also invite outstanding prisoners to visit and perform to liven up the overall atmosphere of the prison. A very small number of prisoners who performed well and were pardoned by the warden could even be called a member of the circus. This design is not bad. When the magician LeBlanc, clown Baggins, and director Christian come to me, they can be placed here. Box, you can also consider resigning as an engineer at the Ladybug Foundation and come here to work for me. What? I've never heard of LeBlanc. He should be a new magician. Baggins and Christian are actually willing to come over. Won't you be beaten to death by the head if you poach them like this? Is it difficult? Han Dong didn't care about Box's wrong words at all. He just responded with a smile. I'm not poaching them directly. I'm just letting them come to me when they can't stay in the circus anymore, or when they want to resign. Before the One-Leg Box could answer, another world-class engineer, Suitcase Carrier Sawyer, suddenly expressed, Mr. Nicholas, I'm willing to resign from my job there and be your special engineer or design consultant here. Sawyer didn't have such thoughts at first, but when he came into contact with the nature of the prison world, he seemed to realize something and had already made the decision to follow Han Dong. Sawyer, you bastard. I was the one who came first. The One-Leg Box became anxious. Han Dong quickly waved his hand. Both of you can stay, and the treatment will definitely be very good. Also, take me to see the personal prison you designed, and see if there's anything that needs to be improved. You don't have to worry about the foundation. I'll just ask Mr. M to transfer your files over. As for Director Mars, he should understand. After a tour, the various prison cell designs targeted at different individuals made Han Dong, the warden, quite satisfied. In addition, Suitcase Carrier Sawyer also specially designed a treasure room on the top floor of the High Command Tower. In his opinion, someone like Han Dong must have some important items that needed to be stored separately. This design also received continuous praise from Han Dong, which made the One-Leg Box a little jealous. Not bad. I can store an important item. You guys should leave for now. This item may cause irreparable negative effects on your mental state. Yes. After closing the sealed stone door, Han Dong came to the stone platform in the center of the treasure room alone. He placed the necromancer's book that contained the advanced scroll, I Book, and Bone Book on it. There's still time. I can still bring more pages out from the broken dimension. Chapter 1861. Han Dong was basically satisfied with the expansion and transformation of the prison world, but some details still needed to be filled in, so he arranged for the two engineers to continue perfecting them. Of course, there was the most important point. Since the prison had been basically built, the jailers had been arranged properly, and the management system had basically taken shape, there was only one last factor left, which was also the most crucial factor: the prisoners. It was different from the selection of Miss Chun-Li, Togu, and Nicole. With the complete upgrade of the brain and its integration with the land deed, the number of prisoners it could hold was almost unlimited. Han Dong needed to bring in prisoners on a large scale. He already had a plan in mind on how to bring in high-quality and diverse prisoners. Buzz, when he returned to reality. The plant planet had stopped at the entrance of the star zone closest to the void. How's Eugene's condition? It's just that his body exceeded its limits and disintegrated. For a perfect Eugene like him, there won't be any side effects. The only pity is that the black mountain of flesh was damaged in this battle. I'm afraid it'll take a long time or be repaired with special substances. Well, there are still a few broken pages, including the skull, brain, organs, and heart, that are still floating in the broken dimensions. For the subsequent search, I'll call for additional help. Otherwise, if we encounter a similar situation again, the risks and losses will be great. When the time comes, I'll ask Eugene's opinion and see if he still wants to follow. Pope, are you still going? Pope said disapprovingly. The Book of Souls is a treasure trove. The Book of Necromancy is the treasure of our world. How could we just stand by and watch as the enemy took it away when we knew that there was an enemy attacking our world? Moreover, the task that teacher gave me was to accompany you to the void. This task is not over yet. We're just taking a break halfway. That's great. Han Dong pretended to be very happy and wanted to put his hand on Pope's shoulder. His palm only touched a ray of starlight, and Pope had already been teleported 10 meters away. This meeting is of great importance and may last for a long time. I don't know when teacher will come back. Since you've recovered part of the demonic book, you can practice here. If you can achieve basic control, it'll be good for the subsequent search. Bob deliberately suggested that Han Dong train on the spot. His thirst for knowledge was extremely high, and he really wanted to see what kind of state the Book of Dead Spirits, which was regarded as the supreme demonic book, would present when he cultivated it, and what kind of changes would occur. That's fine. I've already absorbed enough bones from the depths of the frozen earth. My cultivation should be twice the result with half the effort. Just as Han Dong was about to take out the broken page and cultivate on the spot, Wong, a wave of void sensing swept through Bop's mind. Even Han Dong, an outer court disciple, could feel it. Not far from the two of them, an unmarked void gate suddenly opened. What kind of door is this? It doesn't lead to the void, but the only person who can open such a door is teacher. Could it be? Han Dong quickly added, top of horns. At this time, the answer to such a void gate was obvious. Even Bob, the #1 student of the void and the youngest professor of the University of Mishu, had never been to the meeting because there was a hard rule. Only the old kings who had the throne were qualified to attend. It was the top and most formal hybrid demon conference. Bob had even heard his teacher mention that even the old kings who had the throne would be divided according to their rank when they went to the horn. The treatment of the lower kings was very low, and they basically had no right to speak. One of Bob's dreams was to go to the horn with his teacher when he became the king and participate in an important meeting that would decide the direction of the world. He didn't expect that such an opportunity would appear so early. Bob, wait. Bring Eugene with you. Maybe there's a chance to repair the black mountain of flesh. Okay. Han Dong carried the plant medicine bottle that carried Eugene on his back and followed Bob into the void gate. The transmission process was slightly tortuous, and it felt like they were being pushed forward through a narrow tunnel. The area where the horn was located was rumored to be the most secretive area in the universe. When a meeting was held here, only the key holder could open the only path to the horn. This key holder was teacher Eugene. Buzz, after a twisted transmission that made even Han Dong feel dizzy and nauseous. The two landed on a white sand dune. It looked like a sand dune, but as a master of sand magic, Han Dong couldn't control or sense it. Upon closer inspection, these white particles that looked like sand were actually a special life form. They moved by rolling and condensed into a guide in front of the two. It had a white horn-shaped head. A bucket-shaped robe covered its entire body. The soles of its feet were connected to the white sand, and it moved parallel to the rolling of the particles. The meeting is in the intermission stage. Please follow me. Bop maintained a humble posture with his head lowered as he followed behind the guide, as if he had recognized its true identity. Handong also had a rough guess. The White Desert was a hole, and it was responsible for the guidance and protection of the Horn meeting. It must be a rather powerful old king. A spiral-shaped tower-like building stood not far away. It was the only building in the desert. It looked both static and twisting back and forth like tentacles. Your special permission holders, please stay in the lower conference room for the time being. Okay. Under the sharp corner, there was no door structure. When Handong and Bop reached out to touch the wall, spiral-shaped tentacles immediately grew out and wrapped around their bodies, pulling them tightly. During this process, they were wrapped around by the sharp tentacles. It was a one-way transportation. At the same time, it carried out a deep examination of their bodies and souls. When the tentacles were untied from their bodies, the two were already sitting on additional white stone seats located outside the conference table. There were hundreds of lower old kings sitting in the current area. Among them was Everknight's mother, whom Handong was familiar with, and the great demon captain, who was the representative of the humans, was also here. It was currently a break in the meeting, and everyone was chatting unscrupulously. Tentacles intertwined, mucus secreted, all kinds of whispers echoed in this area like a symphony from hell. When Everknight's mother saw Handong, she hurriedly raised a large number of dark tentacles to greet him. The two of them had just sat here for a short while. A voice came from above. Bop, Nicholas, come directly to the sharp corner. There's something that needs to be explained in person. Chapter 1862. The telepathic message echoed in the sharp horn. The old lower kings, sitting on the apostle level, all stopped their discussions and looked at the two special participants who had just been teleported in. Even the thrones under them calmed down. Of course, everyone present knew the two of them, especially Bop. But they were still very curious about what kind of matter allowed two mythical juniors to go to the sharp horn stratum. This was an area that they could not reach. When the telepathic message ended, a white staircase was formed along the side wall. Bop suppressed the excitement in his heart. At the same time, he did not dare to delay for a moment and immediately stepped on the stairs. After Handong waved goodbye to his mother and the great demon leader, Eugenus, who was seriously injured, also stepped on the stairs. This staircase that went up along the side wall did not directly lead to the sharp horn stratum. Along the way, they would also pass by the meeting place of the Middle Old Kings, the hub meeting room. The scale of this level was much larger than below. The Middle Old Kings were allowed to attend the meeting in their original form. They were allowed to set up deep caves, ice cellars, or parasitic nests as their exclusive seats. Their opinions would play a central role in the meeting. Except for a few final discussions and votes that did not require their participation, they would express their opinions on all the other matters of the meeting. The weight of not voting was basically the same as being on top. Nicholas, you've changed a lot. As soon as he arrived at this level, a familiar voice came from the deep cave. It was the Bufo who had taken care of Handong. Its huge toad body was squatting in the deep cave, staring at Handong with a gaze that seemed to be able to devour everything. Bufo, I haven't visited you in K for a long time. When this meeting is over, I'll make a trip over. There's no hurry. Hurry up. It seems that there's something very important that you need to explain. Okay, it was not just Handong. Even Bop gave the most sincere greetings when he looked at the Bufo. In terms of space, Bufo was in existence second only to Teacher Yu, and there were many things that were worth learning. Before continuing to step on the stairs, Handong quickly scanned the conference room and bowed his head to greet another middle-ranked old king. It was Snake Father, whom he had met in the Abyss Party. In addition, Handong also discovered a huge scarlet elephant that exuded a bloody aura. It was hovering above the scarlet throne. It was the master Count had once served, the creator of the blood brewing system, the blood ancestor. He could roughly estimate that there were about 20 old middle kings. There were also some old kings who were hidden or in the form of twins. It was not easy to calculate. Next was the apex, the sharp horn stratum. Only the most powerful, most ancient, and most powerful Yimo ancestors had the right to enter this level. Every single one of them was a terrifying existence that could shake the world. Every one of them was revered by the masses and had countless believers. Some did not. Even some of the old kings sitting at the bottom of the hierarchy were their apostles and would completely obey their orders and instructions. It was precisely because of this group of existences. Black Tower could only draw a clear line when faced with the uncontrolled S-01. Unless something extremely bad happened, they would try their best not to have a direct confrontation. Han Dong had never been to such an occasion. He could not imagine what kind of terrifying scene it would be at the top. He did not know how much pressure would engulf every corner of his body. He might not be able to withstand it, even if he used all the spiritual abilities he had learned so far. At the same time, Han Dong was also very excited. Deep in his heart, he also longed for such a meeting. He longed to sit together with this group of supreme existences. Just thinking about it made his whole body tremble. A crazy smile hung on his face. Even Bop, who had always been calm, lost his composure. Even if his expression looked normal, Starry Sky's brain was constantly exploding in a series of stars. He could not think of what to say later. Even the speed at which he stepped on the stairs was gradually slowing down. Buzz! A void mark lit up between Bop's eyebrows. This kind of affinity made him slowly calm down. Han Dong also had marks that lit up, but not just one, including the deep-sea mark on the back of his left hand, the yellow robe mark on the back of his right hand, and the gray mark between his eyebrows that symbolized his identity as the Gray Envoy. HM, the Yellow Robe King, is here too? When there was only one last step left, Bop, who was walking in front, seemed a little hesitant. He stopped temporarily. At this time, Han Dong finally placed his palm on Bop's shoulder. He put it behind his ear and said softly, "Let's go. We'll go up together." He prepared himself mentally. He strengthened his spirit completely. Han Dong and Bop stepped on the last step together. Buzz! A short distance teleportation allowed them to reach the sharp horn stratum. However, there was no extreme pressure that they had expected. There were also no reverberating whispers that could make people collapse. There were also no terrifying scenes that they had thought of beforehand. On the contrary, it was a rather harmonious scene without any pressure. Aya, what's up with today's luck? You can even lose like this? Just as they arrived at the sharp horn stratum, they saw Mr. Fogg, lying limply on the throne made of thick fog. He seemed to have lost all the land deeds he had brought this time. During the break, the meeting room in the sharp horn stratum turned into a casino. Apart from Teacher Yu, all the higher-ups were participating. They were having a great time. They didn't even notice the arrival of the two juniors. What the hell is this? Han Dong had never seen such a scene before. For a moment, he found it hard to accept. However, he quickly entered this state of insight. Just as he was about to analyze the identities of these higher-ups, a dark purple tentacle with an embryonic sarcoma on its surface suddenly shot over. It wrapped around Han Dong and dragged him over. In the next second, Han Dong was enveloped in an extremely soft embrace filled with an aura of love and lust. The soft body could evolve into any type, size, and softness of female organs according to Han Dong's imagination. If it were any other individual, they would have fallen into it long ago. They would have been completely squeezed dry in a short period of time. However, Han Dong didn't do anything. His two hands were obediently stuck in his pockets. He slowly raised his head from his embrace, revealing a happy expression that came from the bottom of his heart. Congratulations on recovering, Mother. The reason why he followed Sally's example and called her Mother was mainly because he had been taken in as a godson last time. It was easier for him to address her this way. It's all thanks to you. I just heard that you and Bop are coming to attend the meeting. I'm quite happy too. You can sit on me for the rest of the meeting. They shouldn't have any objections. This Han Dong quickly looked at the gray walker who was bedding not far away. Unexpectedly, the walker didn't mind at all. He even secretly hinted to Han Dong to build a good relationship with the goat mother. At this moment, Teacher Yu, who looked like a bartender, spread his voice to every corner. The negotiation officer from the Black Tower is about to arrive. Please return to your positions. Outside the Sharphorn Tower, in the barren white desert, a series of shadows descended one after another. The leader was a dignified and elegant lady wrapped in a black leather jacket. The letter B was engraved on her body. Chapter 1863. The negotiator from the Black Tower hasn't arrived yet. I thought the negotiations here were almost over. It seems that everything is within Teacher Yu's calculations. How much insight has he gained? He can even accurately calculate the time when the two of us will go to the shattered dimension. Just as Han Dong looked at Teacher Yu, he immediately received an ethereal and deep voice of the universe. Regarding your memory process in the Black Tower shelter, I have already shown and shared it with all the old kings in the previous meeting. Next, when the negotiator from the Black Tower comes over and proposes the relevant cooperation requirements, we will soon enter the voting phase. Before the voting, I will give you a chance to speak. Remember to explain in detail what you encountered in the shattered dimension. I believe you have your own judgment and thoughts on how to explain and show it. Okay, leave eugenics to me. When Han Dong removed the plant container on his back, he was immediately swept into the black, hole-like dot. As for Han Dong's side, after a series of intimate contact, the goat mother was barely satisfied. He was temporarily allowed to leave her embrace and sit on the seat separated from the black goat throne. The entire throne secreted a black mucus that symbolized fertility and love at any time, dyeing the flesh-colored throne with a layer of mucus-black film. A main tree that symbolized all females was used as the spine of the throne. At the top of the main tree spine, there was a goat skull with 8 symmetrical, twisted horns. The dense branches that grew out of the main tree formed a chair fan. The branches were filled with all kinds of flesh-shaped fruits. They were mainly soft spherical cavities or fruits with a sunken structure. Together, they formed the chair back. Such a structure could also allow the goat mother to lean on it easily and comfortably. The armrest of the throne had a bathtub structure filled with diluted modeling fluid. Arms, or tentacles soaked into mucus, could nourish the body. From the design of the armrest, it could be seen that although the goat mother had the basic ability to recover, she still needed a long time to fully recover. Moreover, this black goat throne was a miniaturized version and an incomplete version. The other thrones in the venue were the same. Firstly, the superiors who came here to participate in the meeting all showed a kind of semi-mimicry. That was, half of them were in human form, and the other half were in their original form of hybrid demons. As a result, their bodies were greatly reduced. If they directly expressed it in their original form, not to mention whether the two juniors, Han Dong and Bop, would be able to endure it, the special space where the Sharphorn Conference was located would also be completely overloaded, which would be detrimental to the stability of the space. Secondly, the true thrones of the rulers were often tied to their kingdoms. The real throne needed to be present together with the world, and the pressure it released was also extremely great, so it was not suitable to take it out during a meeting. Han Dong looked very obedient as he sat on the seat formed by the branches of a tree. Even so, he could feel something soft moving back and forth between his lower body, and it was even trying to enter his body. The goat mother, who was sitting beside him, would occasionally smile strangely. Before the Black Tower negotiators arrived, Han Dong seized the time to examine the basic situation of the Horn Stratum, mainly to satisfy his curiosity. He had always wanted to know what existences were at the top of S01. While scanning, he quickly noticed the yellow-robed king who did not participate in the gambling and was lying alone at the conference table, writing. He felt Han Dong's gaze on him. The yellow-robed man took the opportunity to throw a novel that he had just written over. Take a look when you have time. When the time comes, just give me some comments. Okay, Han Dong noticed that the novel's theme was actually Eastern wuxia. He could roughly guess where the Yellow Robe King had been all these years. He must have been active in the Dragon City area. After scanning around, Han Dong had a rough understanding of the situation of the superiors. Moreover, most of the superiors had a derivative world of S01. The following is arranged according to the order of Han Dong's vision capture. There is no priority. 1. What attracted Han Dong's attention the most was naturally from the origin of chaos. Han Dong could only secretly peek at the human refraction surface. What appeared was the image of an old man shrouded in a chaotic robe. He did not dare to look at the specific details. The corresponding derivative world was the center of chaos. 2. The Gray Walker followed beside the Chaos Ancestor throughout the entire process, playing and chatting with him to stabilize his emotions. The corresponding derivative world, Gray Kingdom, Chernos. 3. The Goat Mother who would tease Han Dong from time to time. Her derivative world, Black Forest, had been completely destroyed during the war in the past. Only the central fragment was preserved and was currently placed on Yadith. 4. Teacher Yoshi, who sat on the bubble throne, was in charge of the agenda and management of the Sharphorn Conference. The corresponding derivative world was also the deep space unique to S01, Void. 5. One was Mr. Fogg, who was paralyzed in the Misty Throne. He had lost all his money. The other was a court musician who stayed in the corner of the conference room, softly playing a flute. Grimm called him Uncle True. These two lived in the center of chaos and did not have a unique derivative world. Although with their strength, they could easily apply for and create one, they were more inclined to stay in the chaos and assist the Chaos Ancestor. And their existence was also very necessary for the chaos. 6. One was wearing wet boots with seaweed and shellfish hanging on his leather shoes. His appearance was similar to a sturdy pirate captain, but his face was covered with dense, deep-sea tentacles. This was the supreme existence that Han Dong saw when he first went out of the city into the sea. It was also that time that made Han Dong realize that humans could not fight against the hybrid demons. They had to find another way. Its body was so huge that only one eye could fill part of the sea on Earth. Corresponding to the derivative world, deep sea, there was an entrance to the deep sea in any sea between the planets. 7. The king in the yellow robe who was seriously writing. Corresponding to the derivative world, Soul Kingdom, Carcosa. 8. A humanoid entity derived from the entire planet. Its entire head was still in the shape of a planet. Its body and skin showed a state of gas, ashes, and hot liquid iron. Just looking at it gave Han Dong a great sense of oppression. Due to its special identity and duties, it did not have a derivative world. It and the stars, under its command, constantly patrolled the various regions of the universe, monitoring the situation of the universe. Near each crack, there was a living planet that was in charge of supervising it. The 10th prime essence, King Star, Vader cousins came from one of them. 9. An ultimate ball of protoplasmic flesh that could barely mimic the structure of a human body was rooted in the conference room together with the throne of flesh. Han Dong didn't dare to look at it for too long. Even a single glance was enough to make his entire body feel extremely uncomfortable. The 7th prime essence, the competitive hope, appeared to be related to this ultimate progenitor of flesh. Derivative world, kingdom of flesh aiders. 10. A mysterious existence with a pair of black bat wings and a cloak. Its eyes could move freely on its face, and several balls of knowledge floated around its body. The leader of the deep dreamlands. Han Dong once encountered this existence when he entered the dream with Shally. It also had the ability to see through space and time and possessed endless knowledge. But in terms of knowledge, it was still slightly weaker than Teacher Yu. Since the creation of the Dreamlands, it volunteered to be the overseer of the Dreamlands. 11. A fat man resembling an Eskimo. He had white hair and no eyes. Beads of blood were constantly dripping from his eyes. His body radiated a chill. The level of chill was deeper than the frozen ground Han Dong had just visited. It was not just a matter of temperature. Once one got close, one's consciousness would be frozen. Derivative World, Iceberg Kingdom, Yikilth. His avatar was often active in the northern continent. The third prime essence, Aslan Barbo, had a deeper connection with him. So far, Han Dong could only see so many upper ones. Perhaps there were some who did not come due to special circumstances, such as not being suitable for the current meeting. For example, the father of the ninth prime essence, Kit, was known as the source of chaos. His arrival might cause the meeting to be unable to proceed. Chapter 1864. Because the pressure released by every superior was extremely strong, and it could affect specific parts of the body, it could affect the body. Han Dong didn't dare to look around at all. His eyes either stayed on the familiar superiors or stared at the table in front of him. Not long after, a series of footsteps came from the stairwell, and at the same time, an aura that Han Dong was familiar with emanated. Are they finally here? Sure enough, they value this temporary cooperation. All the people who came to negotiate are big shots. Han Dong sat quietly in his seat, lowered his head, and maintained a smile. Buzz, led by Ms. B, Balance of the World, a negotiation team of 5 people came to the Sharp Corner district. The team also included the famous Director Charles C. Control, who was mainly responsible for answering questions related to rampagers for the hybrid demons. Tester Edgar E. Examine was responsible for reviewing the terms of cooperation and assisting in the negotiation. Director of the Black Tower Security Bureau, CEO of the Rawstone Insurance Company, Sedan Woods S. Safe. If an unexpected conflict broke out during the negotiation, he would be responsible for safely evacuating everyone. Director Zod Z00, Director of the Black Tower Bureau of Statistics, who was also named the greatest mathematician in 1,000 years, would be responsible for dealing with material accounting problems during the negotiation and evaluating the overall direction of the cooperation. It was Han Dong's first time meeting the 2 directors behind him. They didn't participate in the last monthly meeting, so they must have their own things to do. And this time, under Ms. Bay's consideration and invitation, they took time out of their busy schedules to come here for this important negotiation. The reason why Ms. Bay chose them was not only because of the cooperation negotiation, but also because they had the strength to effectively prevent danger and ensure the existence of the balance to the greatest extent. 5 empty seats were left at the end of the conference table for them. Ms. Bay naturally sat in the middle. Director Charles and Director Sedan of the Security Bureau sat on her left and right respectively. As for Tester Edgar and Director Zod of the Bureau of Statistics, they sat on the left and right sides. Han Dong looked curiously at Director Zod, who was a mathematician. Whether it was his image or aura, he was quite strange. Compared to the other holders of the original alphabet, there was a big difference. His hair was sparse and could even be described as pitiful. There were no more than 100 strands of white hair hanging from his head. It was obvious that he was involved in mathematics or computer science. He was wearing a white mask with a huge Roman numeral Euro drawn on the surface with a black oily pen. His clothes were very casual. Over the brown striped sweater was a white coat, and there were even breadcrumbs on the collar. A pair of slightly short trousers covered the lower half of his body. Floral socks and a section of his hairy calf were exposed, although his image was a little bad. However, this person's surroundings were exceptionally calm due to his domain, as if it was a mirror. This kind of silence could even disperse the chaotic aura released by the hybrid demons, ensuring that the negotiation team would not be affected in any way. When the team was seated, they also noticed Han Dong, and Madame Bay revealed a gratified smile. If Han Dong, the middleman, was deliberately arranged here by the hybrid demon king, it indirectly meant that the following negotiations should be relatively smooth. On behalf of the Supreme Will of the Black Tower, we are very honored to be invited by S01 to come here for a long-awaited special cooperation negotiation. I believe that you have already understood the situation of the rampager and the irreversible dangerous situation. This is the special cooperation plan that we have formulated. In addition to the preferential treatment that we have promised Mr. Yu, we have also consulted the Thousand Faces Demon Lord in the last internal meeting. We are willing to provide you with confidential information about B, C, and do our best to achieve real-time information sharing. At this point, the Gray Walker was suddenly stunned. He immediately pretended to be serious and nodded. Once you help us complete the suppression and eradication of the Rampager, we will try our best to provide you with preferential conditions and privileges that other superworlds cannot have, and even under the circumstances of mutual benefits, there will be no restrictions on your development. Please take a look at the detailed treaty. I believe that you have discussed it before. Thick and heavy files were distributed to the old kings who were present. The middle and lower kings who were in the meeting below also received the same files. However, there were very few people at the scene who looked through them. Instead, they were doing their own things. Most of the higher-ups were still immersed in the bet just now, or they were too lazy to spend time reviewing these documents, or they had already made it clear in the previous meeting. The Yellow-Robed King also continued to write. Only the Walker, the supervisor of the Dreamlands, and Mr. Yu picked up the document on the table and flipped through it seriously. A second later, Mr. Yu nodded with satisfaction. Yes, compared to before, there are additional treaties that are beneficial to us. I have already explained the details of the special cooperation to everyone in the previous meeting. However, before entering the important voting session, an additional meeting process will be inserted. These two juniors will tell everyone about their special experiences in the recent era. This experience may have a certain impact on the upcoming voting. Mr. Yu's position among the hybrid demons was second only to the primordial chaos ancestor. It could even be said that he was the spokesperson of S01. After this speech, everyone present, including the members of the Black Tower's negotiation team, focused their attention on the two young men. In the face of such attention and pressure, even Bop, who had always been calm, seemed extra nervous. Han Dong also tried his best to suppress his nervousness and disperse the mental pressure through crazy laughter. He took a deep breath and said calmly, "Bop, Eugenus, and I, under the guidance of the Void, went to the Shattered Dimension to search for the remnant pages of the Book of the Dead Spirit 4 months ago. A day ago, we accidentally found a well-preserved frozen Earth continent that belonged to the ancient Valdos in the dimension." When he spoke of this, with tears of blood flowing from his eyes, the Eskimo who looked like a superior was slightly stunned. He listened carefully to what Han Dong was about to say. After our investigation, we found that the reason why the continent was well-preserved was because of the influence of the Book of the Dead Spirit, bone manuscript. It even completely ossified the structure of the continent. The ice demons that lived in the frozen Earth continent had also completely turned into undead. However, this is not the main point. The main point is that we also encountered another mysterious team in this frozen Earth. Next, I will narrate the detailed process, and Bop will show the memory images for everyone. After Han Dong mentioned this, Bop immediately projected the memory images in Starlight's brain perfectly on the conference table. This image was also simultaneously displayed on the lower 2 floors to ensure that all the old Wangdu could clearly understand the whole process of this matter. The memory began with the discovery of the frozen Earth continent in the dimension. When the plant planet approached the frozen Earth, through Han Dong's undead vision, he observed a pitch-black spaceship landing on the other side of the frozen Earth. When the memory images showed the operation mode and the external structure of the spaceship, Director Charles from the Black Tower was shocked. This is a dimensional spaceship built with the Dark Universe crystal. The technology used must have come from C. Who are these people? Han Dong immediately responded, "Director Charles is right. Director Charles's guess is right. The other party is a rampager from BC. I guess they should have directly torn open the boundary membrane of the Black Tower through the Rubik's Cube and come to the dimensional area separated by S01. In the following experience, we had a head-on conflict with this group of rampagers. Please continue to watch." Chapter 1865. Bop continued to project the memory. Han Dong felt the direct gazes of the superiors and slowly turned this pressure into a unique pleasure of attention. He gradually used the Sharphorn meeting floor as a venue for his performance. It brought about a more vivid effect. Han Dong even got up from his seat and simulated the infiltration, the encounter, and the battle scene. He even pretended that he was in a borrowed state and spread wisps of black substance in the meeting room. Such a detailed and vivid story presentation even made Yellow Robe Nation's Wang Du pause his writing. Even the primordial chaos ancestor in the first seat focused his thoughts and tried to listen to the story told by this little guy. As the rampager who used the match stayed under the temple to deal with the native undead, he did not pose a direct threat to us, allowing us to escape successfully in the end. When the story was finished, the meeting room fell silent for a short time, until an old king expressed in the form of a meaty aggregate broke the silence. How is Eugenus' condition? The damaged black meat mountain is probably not easy to recover, right? Eugenus, Han Dong was about to say something. Unexpectedly, Teacher Yu, who was presiding over the meeting, seemed to have already calculated the current conversation. He unfolded a small, void meat bubble in his palm, and Eugenus' broken body was being repaired in it. At the same time, Teacher Yu also gave a relatively high psychological evaluation. This Shags' performance is quite good. I have already used time reversal on him in advance, but the effect is not very good. It seems to be related to the ancient technology contained in the Black Meat Mountain. Does the Flesh Ancestor have any better repair methods? In Teacher Yu's eyes, only this ultimate ancestral god could truly repair the Black Meat Mountain. According to rumors, the old kings that were born in the early days of the chaos did not have flesh and blood bodies. They often existed in various special forms. It was not until this old king, known as the ultimate ancestral god, was born that the primordial flesh he possessed had a direct impact on the entire universe's ecosphere. It was only then that flesh and blood hybrid demons were slowly born. This ultimate ancestral god could be said to be the origin and return of all flesh and blood hybrid demons. Squeak. The wriggling flesh and blood hand grabbed a shapeless mass of protoplasmic flesh that exuded the aura of life and threw it directly at the void meat bubble where Eugenus was. When the protoplasm came into contact with Eugenus inside the meat bubble, a terrifying life force instantly gushed out and filled the entire conference room. Not only was Eugenus' body rapidly mending, but the layer of black flesh covering his body was also slowly regenerating. Naturally, the negotiation team of Black Tower saw the process of separating the pieces of meat. Out of courtesy and potential risks, Edgar, as the tester, could not conduct a long-distance test on the hybrid demons present. Once discovered, it would lead to conflict. However, the piece of protoplasmic flesh that had been separated from the sovereign had already formed a single entity. Edgar seized this opportunity and immediately performed a quick test on a meatball. The obtained data made him suddenly stunned, and he used his fingers to adjust the frame of his glasses to hide his inner shock. At the same time, he secretly transmitted the meat piece's test report to Ms. Bay. Among them, vitality and density exceeded the maximum detectable value. At this moment, Chief Charles on the side couldn't help but add to the memory image and Han Dong's story description. The two of you encountered the original Rampager, original 146 bank employee from the control headquarters, and the core member of the original 027 Penny family, the Stickman original 027I. They brought along a group of enslaved engineers and researchers. Their purpose was obviously to explore, and gather intelligence in a shattered dimension, wide area, between the Black Tower and S01. They didn't know about the Book of the Dead Spirit that you mentioned. They were just passing by this frozen land to investigate. Your performance was far beyond common sense, and you were able to compete with such a person with a mythical body. The overall level of the bank employee is close to the middle level, and the range of his strength is very large. This has a lot to do with the savings he has in real time. At this point, Chief Charles's evaluation of Han Dong further improved, and he looked at him with appreciation. Han Dong naturally responded with a smile. We were lucky. It happened to be this bank employee who caught up, not the stick man. The random posture I expressed at the time was just enough to restrain the superhuman physique of the bank employee who was not very proficient in magic, and with the help of Eugene and Bob. Moreover, the bank employee himself didn't have much killing intent, and it seemed that he didn't have enough savings. Otherwise, I'm afraid we would have to pay a higher price to escape. It wasn't just Chief Charles. Whether it was the upper echelons of the Black Tower or the Old King, they were all surprised by this special experience in the Shattered Dimension. There was no comparison between mythical bodies and the middle, and the gap between them was like an insurmountable chasm. But Han Dong and the others had cut off an arm of the other party, while all of them escaped. It was too exaggerated. Can I ask Chief Charles a question? Teacher Eugene gently stretched out his hand. This meeting session is to discuss your experience in the Shattered Dimension. You can ask any relevant questions. Chief Charles, isn't the stickman you just mentioned the original Rampager? That's right. The stickman is the third seat of the Penny family. This family belongs to the rare group of people who are out of control, so we have a single label for the entire family. They are an extremely dangerous group of people who have lost control, and they're also one of our Black Tower's top secrets. If the next cooperation is completed, this information will be included in the shared information we provide. Okay, the stickman had left a deep impression on Han Dong. He didn't expect that the other party was only one of the family members. Chief Charles, there's one last question. I learned from Bob that because S01 has been out of the Black Tower's control for a long time, the line connecting the two has long been broken. As time passed, the world gap became bigger and bigger. The size of this shattered dimension should be able to reach the scale of a superworld. Based on the current state of the Rampagers and their exploration of this place, I speculate that they might want to use the shattered dimension as a temporary stronghold after leaving the Black Tower. Is there such a possibility? Well, the possibility is very high. Charles nodded, crossed his hands in front of him, and fell into deep thought. Even Ms. Bay, who was sitting in the center, took out her notebook and wrote down this point. If this inference was correct, they might be able to effectively block and target the Rampagers in the future. Sitting next to Ms. Bay, Chief of the Security Bureau, Sedan Woods, whispered, "Is this young man the only candidate for mentor, Imp?" "Yes." Just as Ms. Bay answered, Chief Charles also whispered, "Han Dong is also very talented in control and management. Such a talent is too rare." Sedan slightly sucked in his stomach and sat up straight. "Well, Minter's luck is really good. I haven't found a suitable successor yet." At this point, Han Dong's question ended. The right to speak was passed to the host, Teacher Yu. Through the last-minute meeting, I believe everyone understands that this group of Rampagers who are about to escape from the Black Tower will most likely choose our Shattered Dimension as a temporary stronghold. Moreover, the other party also has the technical means to navigate stably between the Shattered Dimensions. Because there are still many cracks in our world that have not been repaired. Once the other party completes their escape and stabilizes, it is very likely that they will use the existence of the cracks to invade our world. I hope everyone can consider this possibility in the voting later. Speaking of this, Teacher Yu looked at Han Dong again. At present, Nicholas has only collected one undead remnant page. Most of the remnant pages drifting between the Shattered Dimensions still need to be found, located, and collected. This process can only be achieved by him, who has completed the Advanced Scroll study and has been accepted by the undead. I have a proposal here. After the meeting, Nicholas will continue on his journey to the Shattered Dimensions. Considering that the Rampagers are also conducting a large-scale detection of the Shattered Dimensions, if they encounter a King-tier Rampager again, I'm afraid they won't be so lucky. Therefore, I hope that one of the participants here can spare some time to accompany him. Of course, we must not alert the enemy. I will choose the specific candidate after the meeting. Now, we will enter the most important voting session of the meeting. Based on the final voting results, we will decide whether to establish a special cooperation relationship with the Black Tower. Chapter 1866. As the main person in charge of the Black Tower's negotiation team, Ms. Bay was very satisfied with the story segment that was inserted at the last minute. Not only did it provide an important inference about the Rampagers, but it would also greatly affect the following votes. She also secretly expressed her gratitude to Teacher Yoshi. Voting segment, as this decision would greatly affect the direction of the world as a whole. The voting rules were extremely detailed. There would be a clear difference in the voting power of the upper, middle, and lower kings. With the votes of the middle kings as the benchmark, one vote of the upper kings was equivalent to 5 benchmark votes. If the final votes of the upper kings were tied, and the voting ratio of the lower kings was taken into account, it was said to be a reference. In fact, most of the lower kings were apostles of the upper kings. Even if there was a tie, the final voting result could be directly estimated. As Teacher Yoshi raised his hand, star cards corresponding to the number of old kings appeared on the upper, middle, and lower conference tables in the Sharphorn conference area. With a touch, the card would automatically read the approval, abstention, or opposition from the old king's thoughts. At the same time, it would also record the old king's identities for the final tally. To ensure that Teacher Yoshi did not secretly manipulate the votes, the final result would be publicly displayed at the conference table. Let's begin the voting. After the information was read, the card would turn into starlight and return to Teacher Yoshi's body. All the cards were collected within a minute. As if he had already expected the final voting result, Teacher Yoshi's expression did not change as he displayed the results at the same time. The votes of the upper kings outnumbered the lower kings by 2-1. It was worth mentioning that the Chaos Ancestor abstained from voting. He did not seem to care about the final result at all. The reason why he participated in this meeting was largely related to Grimm. Grimm, who was personally brought back to the center of chaos by Mr. Fogg, was undergoing a fundamental transformation. He might even reach the expected benchmark to become a king ahead of time. When he learned that Grimm's huge change was related to the Black Tower, the Chaos Ancestor decided to participate in this meeting. The voting was successful. The Black Tower's negotiators also showed friendly smiles. At the same time, Ms. Bay took out a special document that involved the world's authority. Once both parties signed the agreement, the special cooperation plan would be officially implemented. The world passage would be rebuilt, and all kinds of privileges would come into effect immediately. The Black Tower would publicly announce that they were no longer hostile to S-01 and welcome hybrid demons to carry out related fate activities. Of course, if they wanted to head to the Black Tower's headquarters to carry out activities, the hybrid demons would need to undergo a pollution inspection in advance due to their special body conditions. If necessary, they would need to wear pollution isolation clothing before they could enter. Ms. Bay gently pushed the World Book to the center of the conference table. This was because she wasn't sure who would sign the document. Would it be the Void Dominus who presided over the meeting, or the oldest and most powerful Chaos Chief? However, accompanied by gray fog, the Book of the World was led to another superior being. It was the Grey Walker. As the representative of Chaos, I shall be the one to sign this world agreement. However, when I was asking Boss for his opinion just now, he seemed to be a little dissatisfied and wanted to add another condition. The expressions of the Black Tower negotiators changed when they heard this. After all, they had already made the greatest concession possible, and such a condition had already surpassed the scope of a superworld. The Black Tower had even considered S-01 as an undefined world of a higher order. If it had been any other negotiation, Madame Bay would have encountered such a situation of raising the price on the ground. She would have turned hostile on the spot and even cut off contact with the world. In a more serious situation, a world war might even break out. In her opinion, this approach completely broke the rules of balance. She didn't put the Black Tower in her eyes at all and treated the negotiation cooperation that she took seriously as a joke. However, the situation in front of her was different. She could only suppress the anger in her heart, maintain a calm expression, and give a reply. Let me hear your additional conditions. The Grey Walker's thousands of faces showed a friendly smile, and at the same time, he raised his hand and gestured. Ms. Bay, please don't take it too seriously. This additional condition is mainly due to a sudden situation. Since these guys appeared in our shadow dimension so early, to a certain extent, they have violated our sovereignty. We value sovereignty very much and will not leave any room for negotiation. The additional condition is very simple. Any rampager captured alive in World S01 and the Shattered Dimension will be dealt with by us personally and will no longer be your property. This was not an excessive additional condition. Since they had already invaded the territory of the hybrid demons, it was naturally up to the hybrid demons to deal with them. The only problem was the Shattered Dimension. In theory, the Shattered Dimension belonged to the gap between the two worlds, and this additional condition was equivalent to giving the entire gap to the hybrid demons. After a discussion, the negotiation team came to a conclusion. Ms. Bay recalled the World Book, added an additional condition at the bottom, and signed her name. The Grey Walker also signed his name as the spokesperson. The moment the signature was completed, any hybrid demon who held the title deed had a very intuitive feeling. Some kind of world connection that had been separated for a long time was slowly reconstructing. They could even vaguely feel that on the other side of the connection, there was a huge, towering black tower. We are very happy to reestablish a cooperative relationship with S01. We welcome you to arrange for your children to participate in our carefully designed Destiny event. We also welcome you to personally come to the Black Tower. At that time, I or the other primordial mothers will personally receive you. We will also share any information related to the Rampager with you in real time. Ms. Bay got up and left her seat. She originally wanted to bring Han Dong back to the Black Tower, but considering that Han Dong would continue to explore the Shattered Dimension, she could only postpone the invitation. Mr. Han Dong, after you finish collecting the so-called Book of the Dead, if you have time, you can come to the Black Tower. Okay, if nothing unexpected happens, I will definitely come. Since the matter had been settled, the negotiation team did not stay any longer. Han Dong also watched them leave the Shark Corner Stratum before returning his gaze to the table. At this moment, Teacher Yu immediately took over the right to speak. At the end of the meeting, due to the special situation in the Shattered Dimension, I will choose an old king to join Nicholas's team and head to the Shattered Dimension again to collect the remaining remnant pages. Among the superiors present, who has the confidence to work together to find the remnant pages without exposing their identity and alerting the enemy? The prerequisite was more troublesome. Not being exposed was the most important thing. Once the Rampagers found out that the Old King was involved, they would very likely give up on using the Shattered Dimension as an escape point. It would be impossible to know where they would escape to next. The Grey Walker could achieve a perfect disguise, but he had his own considerations and would not act together with Han Dong. As the World Monitor, the Old King of the Planets wanted to participate in this operation that involved the safety of the world, but because he would make a lot of noise, he would easily expose his true body. Just as the superiors fell into silence, and Teacher Yu was preparing to choose a suitable person among the old kings, the Walker suddenly raised his hand. This made Teacher Yu ask in puzzlement, "Naya, are you free?" "No. If I act together with Nicholas, it will seriously affect his experience as a faceless. I just want to suggest a very suitable candidate." As soon as he said that, the Walker pointed his finger at the yellow-robed king. The other party was still immersed in writing and didn't notice the situation. Previously, when I followed the clues to search for traces of Yellow Robe in the human cities, he took the initiative to find me. Like me, he likes to mingle in human society. After so many years, he is completely familiar with the various habits of humans. Furthermore, he can perfectly disguise himself at the soul level. He should be the best candidate to cooperate with Han Dong and the others to search for the remnant pages. He shouldn't take the initiative to interfere unless it's a critical moment. At this moment, the yellow-robed king stopped writing with his tentacles and raised his head to stretch his neck. I'm finally done writing." "Sai, what are you talking about? Isn't the voting over? Why hasn't the meeting ended?" Chapter 1867. The Gate of Destiny was mainly distributed on the planet where humans mainly lived, Earth. With the signing of the World Book, these Gates of Destiny no longer had any restrictions on the hybrid demons. Even if they did not disguise themselves in human form, they could still enter directly. Of course, participating in the Destiny event was one thing. If they wanted to go to the Black Tower, they still needed to disguise themselves and carry out a more perfect pollution containment. If they accidentally spread the pollution in the Black Tower, they would be held responsible according to the Black Tower's management methods. A new world structure and growth path had been opened. The old kings who had experienced the Sharphorn Conference. They had already begun to arrange for their descendants or potential believers, especially those who had not become hybrid demons and had not formed a growth system, to try to go to the Gate of Destiny. While they obtained new growth, they would use destiny points to exchange for some useful resources. The reason why many old kings were willing to tolerate and accept destiny was because of Han Dong's special template. He lived in World S01, had the characteristics of a hybrid demon, and grew with the help of the destiny system. Not to mention that Han Dong had made great contributions in various events and had taken the lead. This time, he had joined forces with two primordial demons and used a mythical body to fight against an existence whose strength was comparable to a middle-level existence. It was too exaggerated. It even caused some of the old kings to have a hypothetical concept. Would a hybrid like Han Dong have the ability to fight beyond his level once he perfectly accepted the destiny system? Of course, this was only the beginning of the changes in the world. If they could help the Black Tower survive this major crisis and complete the suppression of all the rampagers, they could continue to deepen their cooperation in the future, bringing about more collaborative development and the possibility of promoting growth. With the end of the Sharphorn Conference, everyone needed to leave immediately. Then, the mysterious guide would retrieve and seal the venue, which was the integration of the white particles. When everyone left, the temporary space used for the Sharphorn Conference collapsed on its own. The Sharphorn Tower and the White Desert merged into a special old king. There was a triangular white insect shell on his head, and his body was covered in a vertical bucket-shaped robe. After nodding to Teacher Yu, he easily tore open a long-distance space tunnel and left. The number of superiors has increased by one more. I didn't expect that the venue of the Sharphorn Conference is also a superior existence. After receiving the gift from the ultimate ancestral god, Eugenus had basically recovered. However, he was still kept in the void flesh bubble and was in a state of deep sleep. Han Dong and Bop also returned to the Star Domain where they had entered the arena. At the same time, there were also three existences who stood at the very top of the world. This included Teacher Yu, who had some matters to attend to. Sheepmother wanted to talk to Han Dong alone. There was also the fourth member who was about to enter the dimensional journey, the King in Yellow. Teacher Yu and Bop were engaged in a special starry sky communication. One could even see tiny stars the size of fingernails flowing out from Teacher Yu's body. The curses seeped into Bop's brain, as if they were giving him some kind of special gift. Clearly, Teacher Yu was very concerned about his eldest disciple. As for the Black Goat, it was even more direct. She knew very well that Han Dong was shy and unwilling to express his true nature in front of outsiders. With the pull of several tentacles, Han Dong was directly dragged into the body cavity for a private chat. As for the King in Yellow, he used this free time to continue writing and saving manuscripts. Drip, 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 the mucus that symbolized the foundation of fertility dripped continuously. The body cavity that Han Dong was dragged into was like a biological nest that was soaked in water. The rock walls were soft. There were all kinds of soft protrusions on the surface, as well as concave stone crevices. At the same time, there were some strange carvings and murals that Han Dong could not understand at all. Upon closer inspection, one would also discover that the wall surface was not particularly smooth. There were small and dense holes, which meant that the sheep mother was only intact on the surface. There were still very deep and very small injuries on the inside that needed to be slowly healed. At this moment, The wall facing Han Dong slowly protruded outwards. First, a beautiful head with curved goat horns was reflected. Then, an impeccable female body was slowly separated. Sally brought the modeling fluid back alone. I was a little surprised that she didn't come with you. It turns out that you have more important things to do. I can understand if it's about the Book of the Dead. The scene shown during the meeting was too dangerous. Why don't I follow you to the shattered dimension? Yellow Robe is not very reliable. Han Dong did not answer directly. Instead, he gently touched the wall of the body cavity beside him. Slender tentacles grew from his fingertips and drilled into the small holes that had yet to be repaired. This action caused the sheep mother to constantly rub her body. At the same time, it caused the height of the water in the cave to rise by a full 10 centimeters, almost reaching her knees. Your body has not fully recovered, and the subsequent recovery process requires absolute rest. It is not suitable for you to go to such an unstable space like the shattered dimension. Chapter 1868. When Eugenides opened his eyes, the first thing he did was to check his body, especially the state of the Roshan. Although he was in the demonic book mode, which was almost unbearable and even made him mentally unstable, Eugenides knew very well how severe the blow was. It was entirely because the outer layer of muscle formed by the Roshan had saved his life. Otherwise, it would have been impossible for him to withstand such a terrifying physical impact with his physical state alone. As Shog's home, the Black Roshan could not be damaged. Huh? What's going on? How did the Roshan recover completely? I remember. At this moment, Pop's voice came from beside him. Under the teacher's persuasion, the ultimate ancestor god gave us a piece of protoplasmic flesh from the throne. This protoplasm, which involves the origin of flesh and blood species, can perfectly penetrate the structural layer of the Roshan and perfectly replicate the essence of the technology left in the Roshan by the ancient. Combined with the teacher's time reversal technique, the Roshan can naturally be restored to its original state. Thank you. Eugenides had received care from teacher you many times. Although his expression did not change much, his heart was already filled with gratitude. At this moment, Eugenides suddenly realized something. Wait, why is the ultimate ancestor god here? Did you go to the sharp horn? He was halfway through his sentence. Eugenides suddenly noticed something and hurriedly grew an eye at the back of his head. About 500 meters behind him, a mysterious figure with a mysterious aura. A mysterious individual in a yellow robe was sitting on the surface of a desolate planet. Using a portable table, he was sitting on the ground and seriously writing. This is the yellow-robed king. He will continue to follow us on the next dimensional journey. By the way, I have to ask for your opinion, Eugenides. Do you want to continue joining us on the journey? Of course I have to go. Only one of the 9 ancient corpses has been collected so far. If I can collect all of them, I can carry out a more stable and stronger demonic book fusion. Well, then let's wait here. Once Andong comes back, we'll set off immediately. Eugenides looked very careful as he stuck close to Eugenides. Even if it was a single voice transmission, he tried his best to stick his head close to the head so as not to be accidentally eavesdropped by the yellow-robed king. Pop, what's going on? Why is the yellow-robed king joining our team? Han Dong and I participated in the Sharp Horn Conference under the arrangement of our teacher, and we fully demonstrated our experience of encountering the rampagers in the dimension. Considering that the Book of Undead is a treasure exclusive to our world, we can't let it fall into the hands of the other party. Thus, he arranged for an old king to accompany him and asked him to complete the collection without alerting the enemy. In the end, he chose this yellow-robed king. Pope, how much do you know about him? When we played the game of Origin in the past, the yellow-robed king seemed to be absent. My understanding of him was limited to some rumors and gossip. I heard that he was removed from the list because of something. I wonder if it's true. It's not expunging, but depriving the superior of part of his authority. This was because when the yellow-robed king was on the throne, his actions were very different. He basically did not participate in any important meetings. They did not recruit any believers, establish any sects or organizations, nor did they develop or cultivate any individuals. To put it simply, what he did was purely selfish and did not promote the development of the world at all. It did not even have the slightest impact. Thus, part of his authority was deprived, and he had neither the right to vote nor the right to speak in the Sharphorn Conference. This time, he was specially invited by our teacher. At this point, Pope suddenly froze, as if he had figured out something. At first, he thought that this matter involved the reconnection between S01 and the Black Tower, and that as many old kings as possible needed to participate, so he invited the yellow-robed king. But now that he thought about it, in the voting results of the conference, the yellow-robed king's votes did not seem to be included. In other words, he still did not have the right to vote. Then, what was the purpose of being invited to participate in the conference? The Sharphorn Conference is under the full authority of our teacher, and naturally, it includes whether the yellow-robed king is eligible to participate. And the person who invited the yellow-robed king to participate in the conference, as well as the person who recommended the yellow-robed king to participate in the dimensional exploration, was the Walker. Could it be? From the beginning, our teacher had secretly cooperated with the Walker, using the Sharphorn Conference as a normal channel, and then using an open and reasonable method to let the yellow-robed king join our team? Right now is the critical period of recooperation with the Black Tower and dealing with the invaders. The middle and upper positions are very busy and have almost no time. The only one who is free and meets the conditions to assist is this yellow-robed king, who does not care at all and has part of his authority stripped. Maximizing the resources of the strong, as expected of our teacher. At this moment, Han Dong, who was wrapped in a black robe, easily crossed through space and returned to the team. He directly reached out and squeezed Eugenie's rather broad shoulder. "Oh, Eugenie, have you recovered? You're quite sturdy. After taking such a heavy frontal attack, you can actually recover so well." Pope should have asked for your opinion, right? Do you want to continue exploring with us? Squeak, a strong tentacle grew from his shoulder and bounced Han Dong's palm away. There are a large number of ancient ruins floating in the broken dimensions, and I can just use the well-preserved corpses. When are we leaving? I'm ready. We're leaving now, but before we leave, we have to get to know the new team member. Come with me. Han Dong did not care. After all, the old king he first dealt with was the yellow-robed king. Although they had not seen each other for a long time, their relationship was relatively good. But Pope and Eugenie were a little panicked. When they approached, Pope's starry sky brain was basically static and no longer carried out any thoughts. The eyes all over Eugenie's body were also closed, and even walking was a little awkward. It felt like his two legs were almost clamped together. "Senior, there is a separate compartment on my planet. The writing environment is definitely better than here. Are we leaving? I'm writing the outline of a new book as well as the opening chapter. I just need a quiet environment where no one will disturb me." "Well, we will never disturb you unless it's an emergency. This is not a problem. I still need to chat with people during the writing period to adjust my state. If the three of you have any questions, you can come to me at any time for a private chat. Sometimes I will even look for you alone. There seem to be many interesting stories about you. Moreover, since I've been arranged to assist you in finding the remnant pages, I will still contribute." At this point, whether it was Han Dong, Pope, or Eugenie, they all felt an indescribable sense of soul stickiness, as if some white tentacle had inadvertently stuck to their souls, achieving a soul binding. Chapter 1869. Han Dong also gained some experience from retrieving the True Bone book. The most important point was that the remnant pages themselves had subjective initiative and an instinctive tendency to want to return to S01. These remnant pages could be attached to a piece of torn land, forming a corresponding space. They could even enslave the mantis that accidentally fell into the broken dimension in ancient times. In short, the remnant pages would do everything they could to return to 01, or rather, they wanted to gather together and form the entire book. If they had come here a few hundred years later, the frozen earth controlled by the remnant pages might have been completed and would automatically return S01. There would be no need to go through so much trouble to find it. Unfortunately, time waits for no one. If you find any moving continental plates or ruins, immediately land and search. There's a high chance you'll find something. However, this search method is still based on luck, and the efficiency is about the same as before. Do you have any more efficient methods? Bob shook his head. That's all we can do. If you want to be efficient, you'll have to ask yourself, Nicholas. After all, you're the one who learned the book of necromancy. Sigh. Let's leave it at that for now. He couldn't think of a good idea for the time being. He could only follow the clues in the void and try his best to follow the probably correct route between the broken dimensions, investigating the broken continents, ruins, and other physical areas along the way. This kind of journey often lasted for another month. However, this month wasn't as boring as before. Starting from the 5th day of the voyage, Yellow Robe would take the initiative to look for them at some special times and occasions. For example, there was an abnormal spatial effect near the plant planet. When Bop was teleported from the core laboratory to the surface of the planet for close inspection, a white tentacle suddenly stuck to his soul. Yellow Robe had quietly appeared behind Bop and asked him about his experiences when he was young. He even took out a notebook and seriously recorded it. Just as Bop was about to enter a true state of reminiscence, he was suddenly interrupted by Yellow Robe. He said that he had received inspiration and had to immediately enter the writing state. Eugenius also had a few encounters. The most ridiculous time was the special experience he had in the morning one day. As a perfect creature, Shugus needed to undergo a perfect metabolism every day. The body would automatically integrate the waste residue from the previous day's food and digestion, along with the impurities produced by the body, and be expelled from the body. In addition, Eugenius' body was very large, so the amount of excretion was enormous. Needless to say, the smell was naturally great. Therefore, a toilet was specially set up for him, which could send his excrement directly to the outside of the planet. When he woke up early in the morning, he felt something in his stomach. Eugenius rushed to the bathroom as fast as he could. He took off his pants and used his tentacles to expand his lower body. Just as he was about to pour out the garbage in his body, suddenly a gust of cold wind blew. The yellow-robed man was already standing in front of him. "Don't mind me. Continue with what you want to do. I came here this time to understand the excretion pattern of Shugas. By the way, tell me about the daily habits of your race." In the face of Superior's request, they could only comply. It was the first time that Eugenius had been in the company of another person during the period of excretion and had to tell a serious story, which made him rather uncomfortable. However, over the past month, Yellow Robe had not looked for Han Dong even once. Perhaps it was because he was more familiar with Han Dong's past deeds. Furthermore, what had happened recently had basically spread throughout the hybrid demon circle, so he wasn't very interested. Today, Bop, who had just returned from outside, asked with an ugly expression, "Nicholas, didn't Yellow Robe look for you?" "No." "Did he look for you again just now?" "Well, he asked a bunch of strange questions again. Moreover, this guy always appears at some very strange times. If I didn't know his true identity, I'm afraid it would be difficult to associate him with the old king. More or less, he gave me the same impression. It has been a whole month, and we still haven't found anything. Instead, we found 2 qualified ancient corpses for Eugenius. We can't go on like this. We are the only team in the hybrid demon cube searching for the remnant pages, but the Rampagers have at least several special teams, and even more than double-digit teams, that are fully exploring the broken dimensions. If we continue to look for a needle in a haystack, it is very likely that all of them will be taken away by the Rampagers. I'll take the initiative to visit King Yellow Robe today. After a whole month of riding quietly, he should be a little free." Bop nodded. "That's the only way." Sensei and the Joint Wanderer deliberately arranged for Yellow Robe to join this journey. They must have their own intentions. Go and ask. However, your tone and attitude must be sincere. You must not have any offensive actions or words. Don't worry, I know what to do. When Han Dong came to the writing room specially designed for King Yellow Robe, before Han Dong knocked on the door, a soul voice was already heard. Coming directly. Since Yellow Robe took the initiative to send a message, it indirectly meant that he should be relatively free now. When Han Dong stepped into the writing room, he still had the same feeling as before. The inside was filled with a thick white fog suitable for writing. Occasionally, tentacles would emerge from the fog, and occasionally, faces and limbs with different expressions would appear. Is this soul quality? Now, Han Dong could see the essence of this white fog. It was like the soul of a living being was perfectly extracted and then mixed together through grinding, purification, and other methods. At the center of the white fog was Yellow Robe's writing desk. Yellow and white tentacles were torn on the surface of the desk. When he saw Yellow Robe's true body, Han Dong was also shocked. This was also the first time that Yellow Robe took off his hood in front of Han Dong. What was revealed was a fleshy face with all kinds of pencils stuck in it. The mouth was open, and there were soul threads connecting it from top to bottom. Each of the soul threads seemed to be binding a powerful soul. Yellow Robe seemed to be carrying out a kind of self-mutilation. While inserting all kinds of pins into his brain, he tore off all kinds of tentacles that grew out of his body. Senior, you are. A rather uncomfortable writing session. I'm stuck. Sai, forget it. Let's stop here for today. Why did you come to find me? Han Dong hurriedly lowered his head, and with the most sincere tone, described the difficulties of searching for the remnant pages, as well as the clues and discoveries he had so far. Isn't this very simple? You have already confirmed that the remnant pages have their own consciousness and want to reassemble into a whole book, right? Yes, they should reassemble towards you. After all, you're already a necromancer and have already learned the advanced scroll and eye. It's just that these remnant pages don't know of your existence, so they can only target S01. We only need to make a soul amplifier. Let the remnant pages in the broken dimension know of the existence of you, a necromancer. Not only will they take the initiative to come over, they may also find ways to send you a signal. Soul amplifier? How do I do that? Come over. Han Dong had just taken a step forward when a series of pale yellow tentacles drilled into his soul from his back. Chapter 1870. Wait. When he felt the tentacles of the Yellow Robe burrowing into his back, Han Dong hurriedly stopped it. Are you afraid of doing something to your soul? Don't worry. If I do anything, the gray guy will easily detect it. He will definitely come after me. I don't want my peaceful writing life to be disturbed. It will only drill a few specially arranged holes on the surface of your soul, forming a spirit-amplifying effect. No, if I change my soul into an amplifier, won't it attract the rampagers over at the same time? I made it. It is a special amplifier for the Book of Necromancy. It mainly amplifies the undead attribute you express. If nothing goes wrong, only the remnant pages will sense your existence. What if something goes wrong? If there is really a special ability which rampager can recognize the special soul frequency on your body, just say that he has a special soul. Maybe he can become a good nourishment, a toy, or be trained into my gunman. Han Dong was stunned when he heard this. The yellow-robed king seemed to be more reliable than he thought. Okay. As the pale yellow tentacles entered his body and touched his soul, buzz. In an instant, Han Dong's consciousness seemed to be pulled hundreds of thousands of light years away, following a path that had not been open for a long time to a mysterious country. When his consciousness reacted, he had already landed on a wooden boat, drifting on the surface of a pale yellow lake. For some reason, Han Dong enjoyed the peaceful moment of drifting on the lake. It seemed that his soul could get a real rest at this moment. After not seeing him for so many years, this little guy's soul has formed an extremely rare inner package structure. The yellow-robed king was suddenly interested. In his perception, Han Dong's soul had a 3-layer structure. Through the layers of wrapping, the most fundamental soul was wrapped in the deepest part. The outermost layer was the very ordinary human shell-like soul. Even if this layer was damaged in battle, it would not completely affect Han Dong's integrity, and he could still maintain a normal combat state. The second layer was the faceless soul, a soul shell in the shape of a smooth skull. This layer of soul was more important. Once it was damaged, the relevant faceless skull would be completely damaged, and the ability would be completely ineffective. The body would fall into a dangerous state, but it wouldn't be fatal. The tentacles released by the yellow-robed king continued to go deeper. At the same time, they changed the way they went in. In order to ensure that this process would not cause any harm to Han Dong, he changed the soft and fine tentacles from the beginning to soft and fine tentacles in the form of a liquid. It gradually seeped into the second layer. Finally, he arrived at the deepest part of Han Dong's soul. This was where Han Dong's soul was stored, a cell-like soul substance. On the surface, it looked pure and clear, as if it had not been affected or changed by any external factors. When he actually touched this cell-like soul, its nature would be revealed, and all kinds of dangerous abilities would be revealed, including the attributes of the Book of Necromancy. Only such a pure, foundational life form can ascend to our world. Souls with such a primordial structure are far too rare. It was precisely because of this, and it was also because of this primordial and pure state that it could accept the faceless skull that Naya spent so much effort to create. It was a little troublesome. A soul with such a primitive structure had to be carefully modified. Otherwise, it would forever affect Nicholas's future development. In this case, I have to consider changing the main character of a novel I'm currently working on. The yellow-robed king temporarily put everything aside and focused all his attention on modifying the cell-like soul. Small and precise soul holes slowly formed on the surface of the cells. At the same time, Han Dong, who was sitting on the small boat, felt that something was wrong. The originally calm lake was rippling with different frequencies, as if something was about to rise. This is a total of 3 completely different body parts slowly emerged from the lake. They were 1. A hollowed-out skull with only the skin of the face stuck on it. 2. A suitcase with a width-to-length ratio of 0.618. Depending on the distribution of the body's organs, it contained a perfect set of internal organs. 3. Separated from the internal organs, a heart in the form of a stone sculpture. It actually worked. That yellow-robed guy is quite something, but it seems that a part is missing. According to the clues given by the Void, there were a total of 5 parts of the broken page that were thrown into the broken dimension. The bone part has been found, and there should be 4 broken pages left, but there are only 3 here. It just so happens that the most important thing to me is missing the brain. Is the distance too far? Or is this broken page in some kind of special sealed state? Or the worst state? This broken page has been found and taken away by the Rampager. I can only find the 3 broken pages in front of me first. Han Dong rowed the wooden boat and went forward to touch the skull with the skin of the face. At the moment of contact, some kind of further sensing was immediately established. Han Dong could feel the exact location and even the approximate distance between them. At the same time, the broken page itself also sensed the existence of Han Dong, the true disciple, and tried its best to get closer. It works. Let's look at the other 2 broken pages. Han Dong immediately touched the suitcase containing the internal organs and the heart in the form of stone sculpture. After getting the location and the distance between them, he immediately constructed the most efficient recovery route in his brain. First, the real heart, followed by the real skull, and finally the real viscera. Under the control of the subjective consciousness, the consciousness returned to the body. Han Dong also knelt on the ground in the most devout state. Thank you for the soul gift of the yellow-robed king. I have already got the right direction and sense. I will definitely be able to complete the collection in a short period of time. The yellow-robed king pretended to be indifferent. He was pulling out the pen inserted in his head and seemed to have a creative inspiration. Okay, you go to your thing. If you encounter danger that you can't deal with, come find me. Okay, it was unknown how far away they were. A raw stone spaceship, made of universe black crystal, was exploring the broken dimension. All the continental plates and ruins in the way were either completely destroyed or loaded into the spaceship through special compression technology. The scale of this spaceship was one level larger than the spaceship that the Matchstick Man and the bank staff had taken before. The number of engineers and researchers carried inside also reached 100 people. At this moment, in the bridge, a rampager in charge of dimensional exploration suddenly felt a soul throbbing. Mr. Teacher, just now my soul field suddenly received a special and wide-ranging soul signal. The target of the signal seems to be moving at high speed. It's not one of us. It's a very special soul signal. It's definitely not one of us. Let's go and take a look. Maybe we can find something unexpected. Chapter 1871. Now that the specific direction of the page had been determined, there was no need to carry out a detailed investigation along the way. Han Dong, Bop, and Eugene only needed to take turns to guard. Everyone could free up relatively more time to rest. Han Dong also took the opportunity to start cultivating the true Book of Bones. Of course, Eugene was still distressed by Yellow Robe's unexpected arrival. Yellow Robe would be there every day when he needed to get rid of the stains on his body, causing him to be somewhat constipated. But there was nothing he could do. The other party was a dignified, superior existence. In a plant room that had been set up separately, the plant planet's self-sufficient energy system would constantly send high-purity vitality energy here. Han Dong sat in the tall grass. The plants here would sense vitality and insert themselves into his body at the critical moment, replenishing his vitality at any time. The reason why such a scene was specially set up, it was precisely because during the cultivation of the true Book of Bones, the body had to be replenished and repaired at any time. At first, because he didn't know the side effects of cultivation, after cultivating for less than 10 minutes, all the bones in his body were disassembled and ground. Han Dong was seriously injured and almost fainted. Without any foundation, directly cultivating the true Book of Bones is really too uncomfortable. If I had known earlier, I would have tried to collect various copies of the Book of Necromancy when I first came into contact with the fiends outside the city. At least I could have laid the foundation in advance, and it wouldn't be so uncomfortable now. Wow, does it have to be so painful? I really should have let Tuga try it. This kind of pain should be able to give him great satisfaction. Scraping, grinding, and perfectly rearranging the nerves and the bones. Using the bone essence that he had absorbed from the frozen earth to reconstruct the skeleton. Every process was extremely meticulous, and a shattering sensation reached the depths of his soul. The pain caused Han Dong to cry out many times, and he even rolled on the ground a few times. The above was the first part of the true Book of Bones, bone creation. It was like carrying out the most complicated and largest construction project in history. The whole process of construction had to be so meticulous that cells were the basic unit. If there were any problems with the bone structure, all the connected parts would need to be crushed and reconstructed. However, bone creation was only the first step. There was still polishing and activating to follow. It was a long-term project that could not be cultivated overnight. Even so, Han Dong still seized every minute and second to cultivate, not wasting any time at all. During this period of time, the yellow-robed figure would appear in the corner of the cultivation room, but he would only watch quietly and collect writing materials. This kind of cultivation life lasted for about 10 days. On this day, Han Dong opened his eyes halfway and inspected the state of his bones. His entire skeleton already had a rather obvious metallic luster. Regardless of whether it was flexibility, resistance, or the efficiency of energy transmission within his body, they had all been greatly improved. I have to say the effect is pretty good. According to the related content of the True Bone Manual, once the cultivation was complete, the defensive effect of the bones in the body would be comparable to Empire-grade armor. The various ratings of the body's functions would increase by a large level, and he would even be able to derive bone structure at will, of course. The most important part of the bone manuscript was the basics. As for the subsequent construction of the viscera and heart, it would play an important role in the control, cultivation, and utilization of the hands, feet, and body. Let's take a break and continue. At this moment, a wave of void sensing came. Bop and Han Dong had already established a kind of void intranet, which could ignore the restrictions of space to achieve all kinds of interaction. It was just an extremely faint sensing. If Han Dong was in the middle of cultivation, he would not have been able to sense it. Bop, what's the matter? Are you finally free? Hurry up and adjust your state. We are about to reach our first destination, and the nearby space parameters have already stabilized. Not far ahead is the ruins where the remnant pages are. Coming right away, not far ahead of the plant planet, there was a stone mountain floating between dimensions. Its scale was larger than any mountain range on the surface of Earth. Within a minute, Han Dong, Eugenius, and Bop had already gathered in the core laboratory. Do we need to call the yellow-robed along? Bop took the initiative to ask Han Dong's opinion. After all, Han Dong was one of the very few special emissaries who possessed the yellow seal. I'll go and ask for his opinion. Han Dong soon returned alone and shrugged. He's working on his creation and seems to be completely uninterested in exploring this ancient stone mountain in front of him. Let him stay on the plant planet to write, and at the same time, ensure that the planet will not be threatened or invaded. At least we haven't observed the arrival of any rampagers so far. The heart remnant pages that exist here have already established a direct connection with my soul, and by itself, they will not pose any threat to us. We should be able to reach the center of this stone mountain in half an hour and obtain the remnant pages. Even if we help Eugenius collect the ancient corpses along the way and explore the stone mountain to try to find the ancient treasures and ancient books hidden here, it should not take more than 3 hours at most. Even if we really encounter the same trouble as last time, Bop, you should be able to directly teleport us to the vicinity of the plant planet. At that time, we can ask the yellow robe for help. Okay, using the same method of throwing plant spores, the three of them accurately landed at an entrance on the surface of the stone mountain. Just as the spore cabin opened, everyone felt a sense of erosion at the same time and immediately opened their own domains to resist. The spore cabin rooted in the ground had been completely petrified in a short period of time and merged with the mountain. Petrification and extremely invasive. Bop, what is the origin of this stone mountain? Well, since I observed the stone mountain, I have been searching in the memory palace. It's a bit strange. The structure of this stone mountain does not conform to the ancient races I know. Those races related to stones do not have such a mountain system. This mountain is most likely formed by the remnant pages. The stone mountain that was originally formed should not be this big. As the stone mountain slowly floated between dimensions, any broken continent or broken ruins that stuck to it would be petrified and absorbed, and over the years, such a stone mountain was formed. The broken dimension is different from the normal space and time. The larger the size of the material, if it can be maintained as a whole, the higher the stability. Let's go in and take a look. Bop's eyes were also shining, and he was eager to understand this stone mountain he had never seen before to increase his knowledge. Eugenius on the side was slightly disappointed. If it was such a petrification characteristic, even if there were corpses, they would be completely turned into stone, and it would be useless. But out of consideration, he was still willing to help. About half an hour after Han Dong and the other two entered the stone mountain. On the other side of the stone mountain, a stable node of the broken dimension suddenly expanded. A raw stone spaceship jumped out through a special subspace channel. Chapter 1872. A ship that had undergone a subspace transition needed to spend a certain amount of time to undergo tensor stabilization. To ensure that the elastic stress in various areas had returned to its original state. Otherwise, if part of the ship failed to return from the subspace warp state, normal driving would directly cause the ship to be cut off. While the engineers were conducting relevant tests on the ship, a group of special rampagers had all gathered in the bridge area. Each of them was extremely dangerous, and their level of control was Jack and above. And coincidentally, the person in charge of this team, and also as the captain, was the teacher's second incarnation. This incarnation should not have appeared here. His main role was to infiltrate the BBC as final authority. However, along with the Grand President's personal order, he requested a full-scale exploration of the S01 shattered dimension. During the exploration, they accidentally obtained a remnant page that they could not fully understand for the time being. At present, they only knew that this remnant page had a deep connection with the brain. A certain special rampager could effectively extract and borrow the power of the remnant page, greatly accelerating the breakthrough of the final authority. Such a breakthrough made the Grand President, Mr. Teacher, and many other members of the committee extremely curious about this unknown area and were willing to invest more human resources to explore and investigate. Moreover, since this unknown remnant page about the brain could help them break through the BBC as final authority, they could free up more people to explore the shattered dimension, including Mr. Teacher's second incarnation. This incarnation was not only ranked before the third incarnation, the Phase Walker, which had been killed by Han Dong and the Headless Team, but its essential attributes were also absolutely different from the functional incarnation of the Phase Walker. It was more aggressive, and belonged to the offensive force that broke through the BBC as final defense. Mr. Teacher, a special soul frequency, is currently staying in this stone mountain. There's a high probability that it is a special hybrid demon team. There's a high probability that they came here in a special spacecraft. Should we first find their spacecraft outside and destroy it to cut off their escape route? Well, let's look for it. When the raw stone spaceship regained stability, it immediately turned on the sensory detector at maximum power and explored the dimensional space near the stone mountain. Although the plant planet was set to a hidden state, there was still a possibility of it being discovered. Just as the spacecraft detector was about to reach the planet, the yellow-robed king who was writing furrowed his brows and tapped the table beside him with the tip of a pen made of tentacles. Wonk. A special soul domain rippled outwards, adding an additional layer of soul membrane to the hidden planet. The timing was just right. After making a full circle, the ship did not find anything. The bespectacled man in charge of dimensional exploration frowned. At the same time, he used a cleaning cloth to wipe his glasses as he spoke. Could it be that the other party has the ability to move dimensions? Or could their spacecraft be shrunk and carried on their bodies? It was indeed possible with extremely advanced biological technology, and it made sense if the other party was an S01 hybrid demon. Mr. Teacher, what should we do next? Their souls are special, and at the same time, they possess a high level of technology. The hybrid demons that are able to move about in this area are definitely powerful. In the early stages, we will focus on probing. First, we will determine the level of the other party and their purpose for coming here. Glasses, Bullet, the two of you follow me. First mate, you and the others will stay here. If we encounter any unknown danger, we will immediately return to the spaceship and evacuate. Yes. Wong. A particle beam shot out from the spaceship, directly projecting Mr. Teacher and the two core crew members to an entrance of the stone mountain. The one called Glasses was a special rampager that could detect soul perception. His image was not much different from an ordinary person. He was a gentle middle-aged man. Before he was captured by the Black Tower, he seemed to be the owner of an optometrist shop as well as the owner of an optometrist. As for the crew member called Bullet, he was responsible for the firepower support of the spaceship. Her appearance was actually that of an old woman. Both of her glasses had been completely dug out and were blind. Her body was shrouded in a camouflage long windbreaker, making it impossible to observe the situation inside her body. Her legs for walking were also replaced by steel nails, giving off a strange and dangerous feeling. The petrification effect brought by the giant stone mountain also had no effect on them. They easily walked into the interior of the cave. Mr. Teacher walked to the front to deal with any danger that could strike at any time. Deep in the cave, just as Pope had guessed, this stone mountain was not this big at the beginning. It had reached this size by constantly absorbing materials from the outside world. This also caused the mountain to contain many different ruins of civilizations. Lucky for them, in a few of the ruins, a total of 4 ancient corpses with noble identities were found. Each of them was a leader from ancient times. 3 of them were mythical bodies, and the last one was actually a false king. Because they were stored in a sealed container, they were not petrified. This made Eugenius smile from ear to ear. When he was the happiest, several green tentacles kept flapping behind him. When the corpse of the false king was being absorbed, even the corpse-feeding cult ritual was shaking excitedly. When Eugenius completed the absorption, he wanted to express his gratitude many times, but in the end, he swallowed his words. We should be there soon. Handong already had a very obvious heartbeat response. Even the frequency of his heartbeat was increasing. The path in front of the cave gradually became wider. When they were about to reach the exit, rumble! Suddenly, a strong king-level pressure overflowed from the rock walls on both sides. Eugenius had already taken out his stone spear and was in a defensive posture. Immediately after, 2 fierce-looking golem statues seemed to have become one with the mountain rock. They drilled out of the wall and blocked in front of the 3 of them. However, the golem statues did not show any hostility. When Shi Mao looked at Han Dong, there was even a hint of reverence in his eyes. Soon, almost the same ancient language came out of their mouths. You are the only true apostle of necromancy. Please go to the inner chamber to receive the real remnant page. The other 2, please wait outside the door. I hope you can hurry. The stone mountain has detected that another group of unidentified intruders is going deeper. Another group of intruders? What a coincidence. Or is someone following us? Can you stop them? We are already stopping them, but the effect is very poor. We can barely slow them down. Please hurry. Once you finish collecting the remnant page, this stone mountain will have no meaning to exist. We will escort you to leave through another secret passage. Let my 2 friends go in together. They can assist and ensure my safety. Okay. Sticking close to the gap between the 2 statues, they entered the inner chamber. The frequency of their heartbeats increased several times. The petrification feeling also doubled, eroding their bodies. Han Dong quickly gestured with his hand. Bop, Eugenius, it's better if you don't get close. I'll finish collecting soon. Chapter 1873. The storage method of the Heart Remnant page was very special. It was not directly displayed on the surface of the stone platform, nor was it stored in a container. The remnant page itself was not directly displayed. In front of Han Dong's eyes, a huge stone heart was suspended in the air through a stone chain structure similar to arteries. Thump, thump. Although it was made of stone, one could clearly hear the strong heartbeat coming from inside. Every heartbeat would cause a circle of ripples to spread out. It was also this kind of ripple that caused the petrification phenomenon to occur. Even Bop and Eugenius needed to open up their domains to resist. Is the remnant page of the Heart Remnant page inside this stone heart? Han Dong did not deliberately resist this petrification process. He even deliberately exposed himself to the influence of the heartbeat, slowly causing a petrification reaction. To be precise, he was borrowing the characteristics of the faceless to try to adapt and imitate this petrification feeling. When his finger touched the surface of the heart, Han Dong had completely turned into a stone man, and his consciousness was once again immersed in the inner world of the Book of Necromancy. A huge hole had been opened in the left chest of the huge corpse lying on the plain. A heart that was no longer beating was lying in the deepest part. It was even gray, as if it had been dead for a long time. The blood vessels connected to the heart were all cut off and scattered around the hole. Han Dong climbed into the hole on the surface of the corpse. He connected the broken blood vessels back to the heart, and at the same time, he also injected the origin blood from his body. Slowly, the heart that seemed to have been dead for a long time began to slowly recover its color and showed signs of beating. At the same time, Han Dong's body in the outer stone room was also changing. On the surface of the petrified body, red blood vessels appeared. The huge stone mountain was reverse, transferring the essence blood collected and purified by petrifying various foreign creatures over the years into Han Dong's body, so as to facilitate the subsequent heart training. With the reverse transfer of the essence blood, the heartbeat from the stone heart became weaker and weaker. About 10 minutes passed. The stone layer covering Han Dong's body and the huge stone heart connected to the center of the stone room collapsed together. The remnant pages of the heart sealed in the stone heart floated down and were caught by a blood-stained hand. The Book of Necromancy's The True Heart has been recorded. Han Dong opened his eyes again. A drop of bloody tear slid down his cheek, and his eyes were absolutely blood red. During the process of contact, just now, his body had already been filled with blood essence. Pop's voice rang out. "Nicholas, it's about time to go. I can already sense faint movements coming from outside. The invaders should be here soon. Right away. Give me a moment." Even though Han Dong had only spoken a short sentence, blood was still flowing out of his mouth. He must store all the blood essence that filled his body, and he must also carry out an effective preservation process. There must not be any loss. The value of the blood was equivalent to the bone fluid from before. It was the essence blood that was extracted, condensed, and purified through the petrification of living bodies during the long period of time that the remnant page of the heart division had been drifting outside. In the end, the blood was stored in the biological reservoir provided by Dr. Swollen to ensure that the freshness would not be lost for at least a year. Done. Bob, can you estimate how long it will take for them to find us? At most 10 minutes. It's quite strange. The scale of this stone mountain is extremely large, and there are a lot of forks in the way. We were able to reach the center so quickly all because of your precise sensing of the remnant page of the necromancer, Han Dong. The other party can also lock onto the correct path. There are only two possibilities. First, the other party also has the ability to sense the remnant page. This possibility is not high. After all, you are the only true apostle of necromancy in the entire hybrid demon circle. Second, the other party can lock onto us through some kind of sensing method. Whether it is Eugenus' scent or the traces we left along the way, I have carefully cleaned them all. The other party should have locked onto one of us. Han Dong pointed at himself with a puzzled expression. Is it a side effect of the soul magnification? Yellow Robe clearly said that under normal circumstances, the soul magnification would not be sensed by outsiders. As expected, it was not very reliable. Before we can confirm the other party's identity, we should retreat through the secret passage. After saying that, Han Dong waved his hand and released a large number of crows, which melted into the dark corners of the stone room. Once someone found this place, these crows would synchronize their vision to Han Dong. Let's go. Less than 10 minutes after the three of them left through the secret passage, Han Dong's expression suddenly changed. A total of 137 crows that were hidden with the help of the darkness were affected by the magic breaker before the other party stepped into the stone room. All of them lost contact with me. The other party is very strong, and there's a high probability that they have locked onto me as their target. Let's retreat first. The sound of vomiting came from the back of the team. Eugenus reached out his hand and pulled out two green eyeballs that emitted a foul smell from his throat and handed them to his two teammates. This is the eyeballs that I secretly left in the stone room, captured some effective images before they were destroyed. Although they could not determine the other party's level, at least they captured their appearance. Not bad, Eugenus. Han Dong did not care about the foul mucus on the surface of the eyeballs. He directly stuffed them into his eye sockets and connected them to his nerves. Only a small part of the image was observed. The stone door was destroyed. An old granny, stepping on steel nails, and a middle-aged man, wearing glasses, stepped into the stone room one after another. At the same time, there's also a humanoid body whose visual image was difficult to analyze and whose whole body was torn apart. The next second, a high-speed bullet shot out from the old granny's body, whose trajectory was difficult to see clearly, directly shot the eyeball and burst it. Is it another rampager? No wonder they can read the special signal of my soul magnification. This time, there are 3 people following me, and one of them can't be analyzed visually. Their strength is probably even more terrifying than the bank staff we encountered before. Pope, can you teleport back to the plant planet? At this distance, it's not a problem. But since the other party has the means to track us, we must find a way to get rid of them. Otherwise, they will continue to follow us, and we will only expose more and more information. It's very difficult for us to fight against this group of kings. If we directly let the yellow-robed king take action, we will inadvertently alert the enemy. Let's go back to the planet first. I have an idea. Let's see if the yellow-robed king is willing to cooperate. If possible, we can lead this group of people to a secret corner where no one knows and where they can't transmit information to the outside world. We can quietly finish them off. Just as he said this, Pope was also drawing the void array that connected to the plant planet. Suddenly, something flew over. Be careful. The 3 of them were already in a state of high concentration, and they dodged effectively at the same time. Han Dong also used an additional high-level ocular technique. The magic eye of truth, combined with the characteristics of the vortex eye that Han Dong had once absorbed, it directly caused a black vortex to twist space. As a result, the mysterious object that was shooting over had an orbital deviation. At the same time, it was greatly slowed down, allowing the eye to see clearly what it was. A bullet? What the hell is this? The first thing they saw was a 7.62 by 39 millimeters metal bullet. But when the magic eye further narrowed the observation distance and carefully examined the bullet, they actually saw a haggard old woman sitting on the surface of the bullet, staring straight at Han Dong and the others. Chapter 1874. True Magic Eye. In addition to the various visual enhancements it provided, at the same time, it also possessed a powerful eye technique that could directly affect the foundation of matter and the rules of space-time. The larger the area of influence, the more complicated the matter was, the worse the effect would be, and the mental energy consumption would also be greatly increased. However, when Han Dong cultivated the true magic eye, he successfully integrated the characteristics of Yuchi-Ninmi, the prophet's vortex eye, into it. The vortex eye was originally a semi-conscious living prop produced in the Black Tower. It was an extremely rare piece of physical tissue equipment. When Han Dong opened the door, he integrated all the characteristics of the entire vortex eye into the magic eye copy, so much so that the fake magic eye at that time could display a powerful ability that exceeded the records of the copy. Now, the true magic eye that grew between Han Dong's eyebrows, to be exact, had already transcended the definition of the Book of the Dead itself, forming an eye that belonged solely to Han Dong. The introduction of the vortex eye's characteristics, not only could it effectively use the visual characteristics of the true magic eye, it could also be used in actual combat to obtain the pre-reading characteristics of moves like first. At the same time, it could also concentrate release on the eye technique. It was like adding a concentrator to a shotgun, allowing a large range of bullets to be concentrated in a small range, causing greater damage. The black vortex effect brought about by the vortex eye could directly condense the eye technique at the center of the vortex, multiplying the effect. The strange bullet that was affected by the black vortex immediately deviated from its original path. Even if it had the self-aiming characteristic, it could not be corrected. But when the slowed bullet brushed past everyone's shoulders, everyone's eyes observed an extremely strange scene. A strange figure. The ratio of the length of his limbs to his body was beyond that of an ordinary person. 2 eyeballs had been dug out, and a thin and withered granny was sitting on the surface of the bullet. Her bloody eyeballs were locked onto everyone. This bullet, just as Han Dong wanted to make other moves to destroy the bullet. Snap! Pop snapped his fingers, and a void rift appeared in front of the bullet's flight path. The bullet that the granny was riding immediately drilled into it, and was teleported to the farthest broken dimension possible. "Pop, hurry up and take us away. We've been exposed." For some reason, although he was not hit by the bullet, after being exposed, Han Dong felt even more uneasy. He even faintly smelled a strong scent of death. While the magic eye of truth was examining himself, Bop and Eugenius, they could vaguely sense a strong but not clear aura of death, as if they were about to be killed. Bop had already finished drawing the array. He placed his palms on the ground and was about to activate the array. A sense of dread rose in the hearts of the three at the same time, as if some kind of terrifying existence that could quickly kill them was about to arrive. Han Dong was about to say something. Pope then made an important decision. He decisively abandoned the void formation that still needed a short period of time to complete its activation. In the starry sky brain, a supermassive star directly collapsed, forming a black hole structure. Wong, including Bop, the main body, Han Dong and Eugenius were instantly sucked into the black hole. Wong, the moment the absorption was complete and the black hole dissipated, an unbelievably fast black shadow instantly attacked and streaked across the current area. The area that the black shadow passed by was burned by a layer of black fire. Even the void mark that Bop had just built was instantly burned to ashes. The black wings were retracted on his back. He wore a skull mask with white sharp horns on his face. As his jaw moved, he let out a terrifying, trembling voice filled with hatred. "Han Dong, it's actually you here. If I had known earlier, I would have killed my way over here. Did you even escape?" The terrifying figure chasing after them was Mr. Teacher's second incarnation, the Black Sky Demon. Just now, when the old lady on the bullet had passed on the visual information she had observed to Mr. Teacher, the anger that had been accumulating in his heart for a long time had erupted in an instant. Even the old lady and the owner of the optician shop were shocked. They had never seen their teacher so angry. Bop had made the right choice. If they had insisted on using the void formation for stable transmission, they would have been burned by the black flames before the formation was activated, and they would have been killed one by one in a short period of time. The move that Bop had used was also one of his trump cards. It was the secret space technique, black hole, that he had comprehended when he had constructed myths and combined them with the demonic book. Only a few, even a handful, of hybrid demons could control this dangerous secret technique. If they were not careful, they would be sucked into the black hole during their training and be completely annihilated. Not even a trace of them would be left behind. This move could be used to kill the enemy, but it could also be used for emergency escape like just now. The effect was excellent, the danger was great, and the casting speed was very fast. The only drawback was that it was difficult to control. Just like the black hole teleportation just now, it could not be used to teleport to a fixed point. Not to mention that everyone was in an extremely unstable broken dimension that did not even have conventional space rules. Bop could not control the destination of the black hole teleportation at all. Buzz, in an unknown dimension that was far away from the Stone Mountain, a white hole was formed, and Han Dong and the others were in a super dense state and spewed out. If it were not for the mythical constitution, the body would not be able to withstand such a transmission process. "Come closer to me." Bop immediately expanded his domain and created an independent space that could accommodate 3 people to avoid being affected by the broken dimension. "Where's this place?" Han Dong was surprised. At present, he could not feel anything. Whether it was the plant planet or the other undead pages, he could not sense anything at all. The black hole teleportation is random. In addition, the broken dimension is a huge variable. I don't know where it is. It's just that in that kind of crisis, just now, I could only choose this way to escape. I have to find a relatively stable area quickly. I can't maintain the domain's expansion all the time. Han Dong and Eugenius had already used their respective eyes to search for nearby, floating continents or ruins that could be used for landing. "What's that?" Han Dong's vision caught a strange light and shadow. When Eugenius looked over, his eyes also could not analyze it. He could only see a blurry light and shadow. Other than this strange light and shadow, there was no other area nearby that could be used for temporary landing. We can only go over and take a look. As everyone slowly approached, the light and shadow became clearer. This ball of light became clearer and clearer, vaguely reflecting the relatively complete structure of the building. Ruins? No, it's a rather complete building, and it seems to be operating. Nicholas, Eugenius, share your vision with me at the same time. At Bop's request, two completely different tentacles drilled into his brain from his temples and connected to his visual nerves. Through the adjustment of his brain and overlapping with his vision, Bop got a clearer image. The rumors are actually true. The lost Great Library of Serene is really drifting between broken dimensions, and it's still open. Chapter 1875. Planet of Plants, Yellow Robe, who was writing the outline of his new book and sorting out the storyline, suddenly froze. Originally, he could clearly feel Han Dong's state through the yellow seal. But just now, he almost lost the connection. Even as a superior, he needed to focus all his attention to barely feel an extremely weak sense that pointed to an extremely distant direction. This sudden change made Yellow Robe frown, and he was even a little angry. The originally quiet and comfortable writing environment was completely destroyed. He was arranged to assist a group of juniors in retrieving the remnant pages of the undead. If Han Dong and the others were all dead, things would be quite troublesome. Not to mention that Yellow Robe himself could not locate the remnant pages. If Han Dong and the others were really dead, he would definitely be jointly pursued by many superiors when he returned. This is so annoying. I just had a clue. These outsiders really deserve to die. In the blink of an eye, a psychedelic yellow robe appeared on the surface of the planet. In the depths of the starry face, there was a pair of eyes that could see through the souls of all things. Currently, it was locked on to the floating stone mountain not far away and had already captured 3 different powerful souls. It seems that Nicholas and the others were only forced to escape in a very extreme way. It should be Bop's method. It's still very annoying. I can only stop what I'm doing and take the initiative to look for these little guys. What a waste of my time. Anger surged. The man in the yellow robe slowly raised his arm. His loose sleeves seemed to contain a lake, an underground palace, and a soul dweller who sang every night. As a withered finger slowly raised, it was aimed at the 3 rampagers at the exit of the stone mountain. A soul energy that exceeded the bounds of common sense gathered at the fingertip. Listen carefully, as if there were thousands of souls of Carcosa singing in chorus. The chorus stopped all movement on the planet of plants. As a living soul, it was completely afraid of the king in the yellow robe. Just as the soul beam was about to shoot out, suddenly, a strand of yellow robe silk stretched out from the back, wrapped around the finger, and stopped this action. Hey, don't be angry, don't be angry. I better go back. Since I can vaguely feel Nicholas' location, I only need to input the direction parameters to this planet of plants. While I slowly searched for Nicholas's location on the planet, I could continue to compose. There was a person with a special soul in this group, one that I had never seen before. No wonder he was able to detect Nicholas's soul magnification and accurately track me here. Interesting, if these guys continued to follow them, they would pose a direct threat to Nicholas and the others. This could be considered a necessary situation. When the time comes, we'll deal with them quietly. Before Yellow Robe embarked on this special journey, whether it was the Walker or Teacher You, they had repeatedly warned him not to alert the enemy unless absolutely necessary. If Yellow Robe directly killed the 3 King-tier Rampagers here, it would definitely trigger a chain reaction. This would make the Rampagers give up on using the Shattered Dimension as a temporary stronghold. At that time, if they wanted to carry out targeted encirclement and suppression, they would have to relocate, and the other party would even try to stay as far away from World S01 as possible. More importantly, the higher-ups had already agreed. Towergate hoped that this group of uncontrollable beings would escape here, or even directly invade S01. They did not want to scare them all away. At the exit of the stone mountain, Mr. Teacher could not suppress the anger in his heart for a long time. You still can't locate them? We were very far away from this stone mountain before, and you were able to accurately lock onto this place. Why can't you do it now? Faced with the teacher's questioning, the owner of the glasses was a little flustered and quickly explained. What they just did should have been an unstable teleportation. Perhaps due to an accidental random teleportation, they arrived at the secret area of the shattered dimension or at the edge of a corner. Otherwise, I wouldn't have lost such an obvious soul sense. That guy actually managed to escape. Mr. Teacher did not mean to blame him, but his anger could not be quelled. His right hand made a clenching gesture, and the stone mountain 10 meters away was directly burned into a large black pit. Mr. Teacher, don't worry. This kind of unstable teleportation can't even determine the location themselves. Even if they want to return to S01, they will have to go through a long voyage. Once I sense the soul here, I'll immediately inform you. Okay, when the owner of the glasses saw Han Dong's appearance, he also remembered the special incident that happened not long ago in BC, which was exactly the same as the wanted order issued by Mr. Teacher at that time. It was the young man who had just appeared in BC, who had joined forces with a king level to kill the teacher's crucial third clone. No wonder he was so angry. Seeing that Mr. Teacher's emotions were gradually calming down, the owner of the glasses was about to breathe a sigh of relief. Buzz! A ringing sound appeared out of thin air. To be exact, it was a tremor of the soul. An incomparably real sense of death suddenly hit him, like a syringe piercing into his heart. At the same time, it quickly overflowed throughout his body, accompanied by a tingling sensation. Such a real sense of danger scared the owner of the glasses so much that he was sweating profusely. He almost fully activated his domain. However, he did not know where the sense of danger came from. Vaguely, it seemed that his soul was about to be dragged into a terrifying white lake. He was panicking and did not even know how to deal with such a danger. Drops of sweat kept flowing from his forehead. Just as the owner of the glasses was trying to think of countermeasures, the sense of danger completely disappeared and nothing happened. The feeling just now? Let's leave here first. Okay. Mr. Teacher also vaguely felt something, and his anger dissipated by half. Everyone took some ancient stones that they had collected from the inside of the stone mountain and returned to the primitive stone spaceship. At the edge of the galaxy, who knew how far away? Under Bop's lead, everyone had already approached the great Sereno library that was floating between dimensions and still in an open state. The library was also surrounded by a circular garden and a dock structure. Only the long bridge between the gardens could reach the entrance of the library. The towering, dark red, wrinkled exterior of the building, like the skin of an old man, seemed to be describing the age of the library. Among all the hybrid demon buildings, it was considered to be old, or even on the verge of death. The lost library is really here. Not only is it well preserved, but it's also in an open state. Could it be? Could it be what? The Great Sereno Library was once recognized as the #1 library in the hybrid demon circle. It was one level higher than the University of Mishima Library, but very few people could directly come into contact with it. I have only seen a few records about this library in books. Rumor has it that in ancient times, there was a super large-scale land deed war that involved many superior beings. In order to protect the library's secrets, the Yellow Robe King threw the library directly into the broken dimension. This time, in order to search for the missing pages, Mr. Teacher purposely arranged for the Yellow Robe King to follow us. But in reality, there is a deeper meaning. And the deeper meaning might be related to this library. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Let's quickly go in and take a look. When everyone landed on the dock at the outermost part of the library, a kind of restrictive force field instantly enveloped their entire body. No flying and no teleportation were the most basic seals. Most of their abilities were also sealed, which meant that if there was any danger hidden in the library, it was basically impossible for them to escape. But with such a library that was once known as the #1 in front of him, Bop was already so excited that his eyes were shining, and there was no way he would retreat. Chapter 1876. Great Library of Sereno. Although it was once an area controlled by the Yellow Robe, the internal collection of books was contributed by a large number of ancient races and even some unknown lone demons. Due to the Yellow Robe's casual nature, since the library was built, it had used a very special open model. With the permission of the Yellow Robe King, any race or creature could donate books. Of course, not all books would be accepted. Before the donated books were included, they had to go through two major steps. 1. Pass the external review of the Library House of Representatives. 2. After passing the external review, it would be handed over to the Library Senate for internal review. The external review was mainly to determine whether the book was qualified to be included in the library. The internal review was to determine the type, value, level, magical effects, and other attributes of the book. It was planned into a reasonable area. For a portion of the books with potential, the library would also spend a high price to invite the author of the book to refine, supplement, or even create a follow-up. Moreover, the biggest difference from a regular library was the review rules of the Great Library of Sereno were so strange that outsiders could not understand them at all. They had no idea what kind of internal review process was. Some secret manuals, magic books, or spell scrolls that everyone thought were extremely valuable could not pass the external review. On the contrary, some seemingly worthless storybooks and novel collections from the low-level hybrid demons could pass the external review and be included in the library. There were even some extremely weak newborn demons that received the invitation of the library. They would go to the library to create and be nurtured by the Yellow Robe. At first, this library was not thought highly of. Many hybrid demons thought that it was a storybook city created by the Yellow Robe King out of his personal hobby and could not be compared to other orthodox libraries. However, reality slapped these guys hard in the face. Every 100 years, in the name of the void, many old kings and mythical bodies, excellent, with the knowledge attribute would be united to review and rank the well-known libraries in the world. Due to the extremely cumbersome review process, it often took an entire year. However, no matter how much it was reviewed, even if the review rules would be amended fairly every 100 years, the final ranking, the Great Library of Sereno, would always be first. Even a master of the void praised the operation of this library, calling it the unreplicable and the most practical library. Just as the void commented, many old kings wanted to copy this management model, but they could not operate it at all. As for how to get to the Sereno Grand Library, they were relatively free. If one successfully donates a book, they will receive a corresponding point reward. These points can be lent to others, but once they are used up, they will not be allowed to enter. In addition, those who did not have any points could also pass the special examination of the House of Representatives and obtain the opportunity to enter the library through an equivalent exchange. But as for what exactly he wanted to exchange, it would be a secret between him and the library. It would be completely confidential to the public. Pope explained the basic information about the Sereno Grand Library to Han Dong and Eugenius in detail. Of course, since this library had completely disappeared from the main universe in ancient times, Bop had yet to be born at that time, and his understanding of the library was limited to the written information in the books. Everyone who landed on the pier of the library was immediately affected by the restrictive force field. Sensing the powerful restrictive force that even sealed the space around him, Bop revealed an excited smile and muttered, "That's right. Sure enough, it's still operating normally. How incredible! Drifting alone in the shattered dimension, it has crossed several eras and still maintained its original state." As expected of the first library, while Bop was excited due to his thirst for knowledge, he also understood many things. Why Yellow Robe was specially arranged to assist his group, and why his teacher ordered Bop to follow Han Dong on this expedition. If it was Han Dong who was exploring between dimensions, his goal was the remnant page. Eugenius' goal was the ancient corpse. The answer to Bop's goal had already been given in front of him. It was this lost first library. Thinking of this, Bob knelt on the ground in an extremely pious posture, expressing his gratitude to teacher Eugenius, who was far away in the deep void. This is an opportunity that belongs to us alone. Let's go. Bob took the lead, while Han Dong and Eugenius brought up the rear. Just as everyone stepped into the garden, a strange-looking individual suddenly emerged from the dense plants. A small white vest with slender plant vines wrapped around its body and arose in front of its chest. The most unique thing was its brain structure. The physical head above the neck was completely cut off, but the soul in the head was perfectly preserved, appearing as a white mist visible to the naked eye. All kinds of white tentacles wriggled in its mouth, and some tentacles occasionally drilled out from its eyeballs and ears. Distinguished guests, do you have point stones with you? If you do, please give them to me for authenticity verification. Once the verification is successful, as one of the gardeners of this garden, I will lead you to the main entrance of the library. No, without the point stones, it will be more troublesome. Chapter 1877. Falling. When Han Dong was growing up, he had experienced all kinds of falls. The most recent special fall was in the center of chaos, Mad Abyss. At that time, he fell for more than a month before he finally reached the bottom entrance of the Abyss Party. During that time, he was also affected and eroded by madness. However, for Han Dong, who had the attribute of madness, falling into the Mad Abyss was a kind of enjoyment. The current fall in front of the Sereno Grand Library was completely different. Every time he fell a certain distance, a strange belt of light would be drawn on the surface of the rock wall. As the fall speed increased, the frequency of the belt of light in front of his eyes also increased. It had a direct effect on his soul. Although Han Dong could use mad laughter to resist it, he did not do so. Instead, he followed the library's entry method. At least when he came to the front dock of the library, Huang Yin had sensed it. This meant that this place was indeed under Haster's jurisdiction. Moreover, there was no sense of danger all the way from the dock to the front door. Just as Bob said, we can't mess around with such an opportunity. We might miss it. I don't know where this falling entry method will lead us to. F***CK. My mind can't take it anymore. As the frequency of the flashing of the belt of light increased rapidly, Han Dong's consciousness gradually blurred until it completely dissipated. Buzz! A bright ray of light fell on Han Dong's body vertically. His consciousness was also awakened by the warm ray of light. However, his body was tied to a special biological chair. Even his brain was covered by a biological hood similar to the mouth of a seven-gilled eel. He was already restricted by the library. In addition to the current physical constraints, he could not move at all. His current seat was in the center of a certain parliament hall. From the inside to the outside, from the bottom to the top, the parliament seats surrounded Han Dong in a circle. According to Bob's explanation of the library, this should be the so-called House of Representatives. It was responsible for the external review of various books, as well as the special review of outsiders who wanted to enter the library but did not have donation points. When Han Dong first woke up, there was still no one here. But as he looked around, clouds of white mist began to appear in the seats of the House of Representatives, condensing into the members of the House of Representatives who worked for the library in their soul state. Aren't these counselors all the same? There seem to be all kinds of hybrid demons. Could it be that the library was also free to choose members of the council? Or were the counselors here forced to take office? Outsiders who came to borrow books without donating any books or accumulating any points had to pay the price of imprisoning their souls in the library to work. That's very likely. The next special review is likely to verify whether I'm suitable to work in the library and what kind of work I'm suitable for. This would also explain why there were still so many workers here despite the library drifting in the broken dimension for so many years. They did not stay on their own accord. Instead, They had signed some kind of soul contract that they could not break free from. Let's take a look at the situation first. Hopefully, there are some loopholes that we can exploit. Honorable yellow-robed messenger, welcome to the great library of Sereno. Due to your special status, we will conduct a special examination to determine if you are qualified to enter the library's collection area for the relevant borrowing activities. In fact, the so-called investigation is just to ask you a few more in-depth questions. The detector on your head will verify the authenticity of your answers based on the soul fluctuations and brainwaves. I hope you won't deceive us. Of course not. I'm a very honest believer. At this moment, another brain had overflowed from Han Dong's skull, hiding the original main brain, and at the same time, nested with Dr. Swollen's soul plating. Not to mention whether this device could penetrate the faceless skull. Even if it did, it could only detect the will of Dr. Swollen. It had nothing to do with Han Dong's own will. The first question, are you willing to contribute to the great library of Sereno? Of course I'm willing. I'm the most loyal believer of the Yellow-Robed King. It's my lifelong honor to contribute to the library. Very good. The second question, if you have a certain literary talent and you're asked to create a story collection or a magic book for the library, due to the limitations of the collection requirements, the creative process may take a lot of time and energy. How much are you willing to pay? I'm willing to give up the rest of my life to give the library my best work. Very good. Just as Han Dong had expected. The relevant questions were all centered on the library to determine whether the individual was willing to work for free and how much inclination they had. Every answer Han Dong gave was close to extreme, but the actual wishes were all a no. These guys' brainwashing level is still very good, and this kind of review work is also quite good. To be able to hold on to their posts through the changes of several eras and endless nothingness, these members of parliament are quite good. If I can get them all into my prison world, I might be able to set up a similar review organization. Let them review the subsequent prisoners, which can greatly improve the management of prisoners and the allocation of resources. After answering, all the members of parliament smiled heartily. It had been a long time since they had met such a valuable outsider. Buzz. Han Dong, who was removed from the restraints of his seat, was directly led outside the House of Representatives in a huge and deep corridor. There were various murals painted on both sides of the corridor. It looked like a comic story with individuals and groups as the units. There was no profound story plot, just a simple telling of an ordinary story. There were also soul janitors floating on both sides of the wall, holding an oil lamp in one hand and cleaning in the other. Not long after, Bop and Eugenius were also led here. At the same time, a voice that reached deep into the soul came from the depths of the deep passage. As the yellow-robed envoy has passed the special review with a perfect score, you will receive 99 days of freedom. When the time is up, the yellow-robed envoy will be the main body and sign the relevant soul contract with the library to pay your reading fees. Bop immediately exploded. His brain was in a state of exploding stars. 99 days. Nicholas, how did you do it? I read about the Sereno Great Library. Most of the borrowers don't stay in the library for more than 3 days. Even the hybrid demons who have contributed books can only use their points to exchange for weekly cards at most. Only a very small number can exchange for monthly cards. What answer did you give to make the library give you 99 days, including us? Han Dong explained very calmly. It's like a loan from a bank. I've maxed out all my credibility tests and then used everything the three of us own as collateral, including the rest of our lives and the ownership of our souls. What? Sigh, an equivalent exchange? Otherwise, why would others let us read for free? Besides, this is yellow-robed envoy's territory. As a teammate, he will definitely come looking for us when we suddenly disappear. Don't think too much about it. Hurry up and start reading. We'll cross that bridge when we get there. Even if yellow-robed envoy doesn't come, there will definitely be a way. Bob could somewhat accept it. After all, the temptation of 99 days of free reading was too great. However, Eugenius, who didn't like reading, had an extremely uncomfortable expression the entire time. He felt that he had been packaged and sold. Chapter 1878. Free borrowing, not even a guide. That's equivalent to letting us explore the library freely and stay here for 99 days. In response to Handong's question, Bob nodded his head. It should be. Rumor has it that the Sereno Grand Library doesn't impose any restrictions on the borrowers themselves. It also uses a relatively free management model. As long as the borrowers don't do anything that violates the rules, such as destroying public facilities and copying books, they shouldn't be restricted in doing other things. Let's hurry up. Bob thought of being able to stay here for such a long time and being completely free. He directly made an action that was beneath his dignity and used his palm to touch the surface of Starlight's head. Through such a physical touch, he suppressed the excitement in his body. Walking in the huge and deep corridor, for the time being, they didn't see any side doors or forks leading to the library. However, according to the ordinary story shown on the murals on both sides, the plot was coming to an end. Presumably, the passage should also be coming to an end. If the story of the mural ends and it's still the same passage, I'll ask the cleaner. Just as Handong guessed, when the story of the mural came to an end, the huge corridor evolved into a special fork. The number of forks just matched Handong and the others, a total of 3. The left fork was a dark staircase that extended downwards. The top of the porch was printed, monster head with big and small eyes. The middle fork was a regular passage that extended horizontally. The top of the porch was printed, small black person with normal proportions. The right fork was an upward staircase that emitted a faint light. The top of the porch was printed, 3 books that change color according to the angle of observation, forming a triangle with each other. Handong examined the forks and the imprint on the door and said softly, "Are these forks temporarily formed by the library to adapt to our arrival?" "Well, it's very likely. The long corridor we walked through before may be used to test our attributes and also as a buffer area. When we walked through the long corridor, the library slowly transformed the space here, creating forks that match us. The imprints on them can more or less represent our characteristics. Next, we need to act separately. We should stay inside for a full 99 days. See you then." Okay. Just as Handong and Bop were about to step into their respective forks, Eugene blocked them in an instant. "Wait, did the two of you forget what just happened? Nicholas used the rest of our lives and all of our souls as collateral in exchange for such an opportunity. If we separate now, 99 days will pass just like this. At that time, we might be directly captured to have our souls extracted and forced to sign a slave contract. We will be reduced to slaves here, never to be reincarnated." Handong, on the other hand, looked calm. He leaned his face close to Eugene's ear and whispered, "Didn't I just say, Yellow Robe will definitely come back for us? He's definitely fine. Besides, now that things had come to this, it was better to go with the flow and seize the opportunity. Eugene, it's all right. Read the books carefully. You might be able to deepen your understanding of the corpse-eating cult's ritual through the books here. You're the 5th origin substance. It'll be fine." After saying that, Handong patted his shoulder lightly. His hand was more or less stained with the stench. Bop, who was at the side, didn't explain anything either, directly stepping onto the rightmost fork. After patting Eugene's shoulder, Handong wiped the stinky mucus off his hand on the wall beside him and walked into the middle fork alone. Eugene stayed where he was for a while. Even though he was extremely dissatisfied with Handong and wanted to vent his anger, he couldn't. In the end, he could only sigh and walk down the stairs that the library had arranged for him alone. I didn't expect the library to direct us to the corresponding library area based on our characteristics. Let's go in and see what kind of books the library wants to display for me. If I'm not satisfied, I should be able to go to the other library areas. As for whether the demonic book is here or not, I'm guessing there are at most 1 or 2 books. After all, most of the demonic books are kept in the hands of the old kings or sealed away. The demonic books in the University of Me library are also provided by the principal himself. The few demonic books that are relatively stable are stored in the deepest part of the library, especially the Color of Stars under his command. Then, What kind of book collection is here that could be ranked first in the library for so long? Filled with curiosity, when he walked out of the fork in the road, he saw a simple and unadorned library. 10 meters tall, movable bookshelves were neatly arranged in an even spacing. There was also a large empty space in the middle, where there were tables, chairs, and lamps that were suitable for Han Dong's height. The overall design leaned toward humans, and it even resembled the campus library that Han Dong used to teach at the university when he was alive. Han Dong came to the nearest bookshelf and randomly pulled out a book. It wasn't a secret manual, scripture, or some obscure ancient book. Instead, it was an exquisitely bound novel, The Strange Happenings of Don Arlekius. A novel? Just as Han Dong tried to read it, his fingers clasped to the side, tried to flip open the thick cover. A strange feeling overflowed his body. The moment he lifted the cover slightly, he had a subtle feeling that his soul had left his body. Han Dong estimated that if he completely opened the cover, his soul would be sucked into it. At this moment, Han Dong immediately understood the true value of this library and why the Void Dominus said that it couldn't be copied. This is a unique library that only the King of Yellow Robes could create. This guy didn't do nothing back then, looking for gunmen to write for him all day long. The King of Yellow Robes, in ancient times, should be a practical monarch. This library must be a masterpiece of the world that he created with all his heart and soul. It was even because of the construction of the library that his value concept completely changed, and he embarked on this special path of creation, becoming incompatible with his superiors. Just as Han Dong thought of this, something soft, sharp, and cold suddenly licked the back of his head. The licking obviously happened on the outside, but it felt like the inside of his brain was also licked and even slightly drilled. Han Dong was so scared that he quickly distanced himself. Delicious, so delicious. Your brain, to be able to rank in the top 3 of the brain matter I've tasted in my life. And there are 2 flavors. It's really amazing. This strange and deeply connected head. No wonder the King of Yellow Robes chose you as an emissary. With a brain structure like yours, you will definitely be able to create satisfactory works and at the same time satisfy my needs for food. A terrifying sound that completely condensed the air came at the same time. The swollen doctor fused in the brain was already trembling, producing a sense of fear that came from the root of his soul. It was as if he had encountered some kind of irresistible natural enemy. The existence of this thing could make the entire Migo race tremble. A pitch-black figure that condensed all the inhuman fear was standing where Han Dong was just a moment ago. An ancient body full of wrinkles. Hooks penetrated the wrinkled surface of the back and arms. Through these hooks were attached to damaged, old yellow satin. Its head was filled with soft, tongue-like tentacles. It was this special tentacle that had just licked Han Dong's brain and even wanted to suck it clean. Lord, this was the second identity of the King of Yellow Robes. The faraway reveler, the brain devourer, the feaster from afar, devourer of brains, Han Dong replied calmly. Oh, looks like this is the curator. Chapter 1879. Second identity? Some kind of avatar? No, this is not as simple as an avatar, but a true second identity. Its level and strength are not much different from the Yellow-Robed King. He can even be called the Yellow-Robed King. Professor, please explain in detail. Okay, actually, there are many versions of the rumors about the Yellow-Robed King's second identity. However, most of the versions are not very reliable in my opinion and based on the analysis of the known intelligence. First, I'll share with you a rumor that has a high credibility and is the most widespread. As the Yellow-Robed King himself is quite casual compared to the other old kings, he is considered a kind existence. Not to mention that he allows any race to set foot in the territory he manages. Important areas like the library also use a relatively free management model. Many people guessed the Yellow-Robed King's kindness is because he has perfectly separated the evil and impure impurities from his body through the highest level of soul stripping. for a normal life form. Even if they manage to survive such a soul stripping, due to the incomplete soul, it is difficult for the body to function normally. It is basically not much different from being crippled. It is also this separated part that is nurtured and grew with the help of the Yellow-Robed King's derivation method that he has already prepared, slowly forming an independent entity that is equivalent to the Yellow-Robed King. It is the second identity in front of him, the distant reveler. He has a special interest in collecting souls, and at the same time, he has an irrepressible interest and strong need for brains. There was a period of time when the total number of S01 Migos decreased sharply by 30% because of his existence. The other old kings immediately joined forces to restrict him and asked the Yellow-Robed King to strictly control the second identity. After all, Migos still contribute a lot to the world and are indispensable creatures of the world. So, Lord, you must be careful. Your brain is unique, and he will definitely desire it. Han Dong connected the information sent by the professor with some other information. Oh, soul stripping, separating evil and impurities, forming the second identity. If the rights of the second identity are not restricted and freedom is given, whether it is behavior or the rule of the territory, it will become extreme. Previously, Pope said that the reason why the library was thrown into the broken dimension seemed to be because of a large-scale land deed war that happened in the ancient world. Could the fuse of this war be related to this second identity? Let's leave it at that. I'll try to talk to him. If he's also a yellow-robed, I'm still an emissary. I should be able to keep my head. The professor seemed to be telling a story, but in reality, it was equivalent to transmitting this part of the memory directly to Han Dong. There was no time delay in reality. The credibility of this rumor was indeed very high, but Han Dong was not afraid. From his point of view, the appearance of the second yellow robe could only answer one question. Why was the library still able to maintain its normal open state without any damage after drifting between the broken dimensions for several years? Greetings to the director of the Great Library of Sereno. Seeing Han Dong directly address him as curator, the other party revealed a rare smile. I didn't expect you to be so polite. Before you read the book, I need you to answer the doubts in my heart. I don't know how many years it has been since I brought the library to the Shattered Dimension, and I have long since lost contact with my original world. As I drifted endlessly, I slowly found some survival modes that could barely be considered orderly in the chaotic dimensions. Although it appeared to be a vast dimensional region, there were actually differences in depth. I have already moved the library to a deeper location to avoid being disturbed by the outside world. I didn't expect that you little guys with mythical bodies could actually find this place. Even if you were the yellow robe messenger, you shouldn't be able to sense it. How did you find this place? And what are you doing in the Shattered Dimension? Well, Han Dong did not hide anything. He explained all his experiences of searching for the Dead Spirit Remnant page and encountering the BBC invaders. He explained in detail that he was finally forced to abandon the important spacecraft, the planet of plants, and accidentally came here through the black hole. All of it was the truth because Han Dong knew that any lie could be easily seen through by the soul. However, Han Dong also kept some things to himself. He deliberately left out a part. He did not mention the Yellow Robe King throughout. What did you say? The rampagers from the Black Tower's Control Bureau are trying to use this area as a temporary stronghold, and they're also conducting a comprehensive investigation and plundering the resources here. When the curator heard about the alien race and the invasion problem, his whole body exuded an extremely terrifying aura. The air in the entire library was condensed and even blackened. It turned into a black plate visible to the naked eye. The yellow ribbon hanging on his body through the iron hook also floated up as if it was outlining a terrifying, devouring monster in the air. Yes, otherwise, we wouldn't have come here by accident. Just as Han Dong raised his head again, the terrifying scene in front of him disappeared together with the curator. The library returned to silence. After confirming that the curator had left, the corners of Han Dong's mouth curled up slightly. I accepted the guidance of the void this time to go to the shattered dimension to find the remnant page. It's definitely not as simple as it seems on the surface. I'm afraid it's just a node of a huge plan. So far, what we have speculated is only a part of it. The remnant page, the yellow robe, the library left here from ancient times, and the second identity hidden here. How big of a net did teacher you set up? What does he want to use this opportunity to pull out, and what kind of results? Don't think about it. It's only a waste of time to think about it now. This net will inevitably appear gradually as we explore the process. Let's read first. We still have to grasp the opportunity in front of us. He stopped thinking about it. Han Dong quickly switched to reading mode and first gained a superficial understanding of the library. After spending a full 12 hours, Han Dong roughly touched all the books here. He only touched the surface and didn't read anything. This made Han Dong clear the nature of the library and the next reading goal. The reason why the library can't copy on the surface, it looks like the library's internal secret review mechanism, as well as various book collection patterns that can't be found. In fact, the real reason why it can't be copied is because of this soul reading created by the Yellow Robe King. Only a soul master like him can do it. After that, the Yellow Robe liked to travel alone in the human world and write novels with the help of writers. It was also because he could let himself swim in the stories in the books and carry out a completely different journey in a world that was in line with his expectations. While satisfying his interests, he could also obtain great enlightenment. Every book in this Sereno Grand Library had undergone soul transformation. There was a soul port on the cover. With the help of the spiritual environment provided by the library itself, individuals could easily achieve soul separation and enter the book through the port. They could even freely choose to browse the entire book as the protagonist of a novel, or experience the entire story as a supporting character, a villain, or even a passerby. It was no wonder that this place could occupy the first place of the library for a long time without the support of the demonic book. This kind of soul reading would allow the reader to obtain a completely different experience and enlightenment. Let me give it a try too. Han Dong grabbed a book that he had already chosen in his heart. Chapter 1880. Wanderer in the Dark. The cover of the book was translucent black gelatinous, and there was a black shadow inside. The spine of the book was made of a tentacle wrapped around a spine structure. Of course, this was not a particularly expensive book. If he went to some neutral markets, he might be able to find a similar book. What Han Dong valued was only the attributes of this book and the hidden story content. The moment he opened the book cover, it was like the most advanced lubricant was applied to the body. Not only the skin, but even the gaps between the skin and the bones were filled with lubricant. The complete soul body easily came out of the body. It entered through this soul port constructed on the first page of the book. A voice similar to the yellow robe sounded in the soul. Please choose your perspective of reading this book. First person or third person? Han Dong seemed to have already made a decision in his heart, without any hesitation. What kind of character do you want to experience this book? 1. Protagonist, strong restrictions. You need to make key choices and actions according to the main line specified in the book. If you deviate from the main line or violate the protagonist's character, the reading will be forced to end, and your soul will be affected or even destroyed. 2. Supporting role, restrictions. You will choose the supporting role with the closest attributes to you. When you come into contact with the protagonist, you need to act according to the preset main line. Otherwise, you will be punished and your soul will be affected. 3. Passerby, low restrictions. You will randomly descend into the body of a passerby. Without affecting the protagonist and the main line of the world, you can move freely and even explore the book world. Protagonist. Also without hesitation, Han Dong decisively experienced the whole story as the protagonist. In fact, from Han Dong's soul state, it could be understood that the soul separated from the body was the pure, faceless state. The so-called strong and weak restrictions were not a problem at all. The stronger the restrictions, the higher the requirements for imitation. Han Dong could take this opportunity to hone his faceless myth. When he was in the abyss of chaos, Han Dong had already found the answer to the self. If he wanted to truly understand the truth of faceless, he needed to find other answers besides the self. The Sereno Grand Library just happened to provide a direct way to find the answer. The protagonist, who had his soul integrated into the book, had completely abandoned his self and lived with another identity. Even his most fundamental species, personality, and living habits had completely changed. This book, Wanderer in the Dark, mainly tells the story of a dark dweller. Due to a congenital defect, he was ostracized by his own race. He was even framed and forced out of the city. When Han Dong's consciousness was clear, he was in the darkness of the nest. His body was unable to harden, and he could not move normally like the other clansmen. When he was young, he was always surrounded by all kinds of sneers. However, a strange smile appeared on his face. He quickly adapted to this identity and even forgot the names Han Dong and Nicholas. He began his dark life in the depths of Yahizi, another section of the library, which was the area that Pope arrived at by following the stairs. It was designed as an astronomy library. The ceiling was a completely open patio structure. The patio was nearly 100 meters high, and there were reflective panels that could be used for visual magnification on both sides. Just by looking up, one could observe the chaotic astronomical phenomena in the shattered dimensions. When Pope first came to the library, he was also attracted by this design, but his attention was more focused on the books here. The astronomy library's collection was 23% fewer than Han Dong's, but the quality was a grade higher. The books that belonged to the literary stories or epics created by famous hybrid demons could all be called famous works. Even without the characteristics of the books that had undergone soul transformation, the books themselves were priceless. So it's like this. This is the secret of the library. This is the reason why Teacher identified it as the first library. So interesting. The Yellow-Robed King is truly worthy of being called an unparalleled expert in the domain of the soul. Pope and Han Dong completed their understanding of the library at almost the same time and also opened the books at the same time. The first book he read was called The Noisy Land. It was different from Han Dong's choice of various characters and stories to experience the lives of thousands of different hybrid demons. Some of the famous works that Bop had chosen contained even deeper philosophies and concepts. He chose the third person plus the identity of a passerby. It formed a pure spectator's perspective, using the protagonist as the axis to observe the direction of the entire book's world, the flow of space and time. At the same time, it would also carefully understand the inner activities and intertwining emotions of each character. Just as Han Dong and Pope were fully using the characteristics of the library to immerse themselves in the world of books, what greeted Eugenius was a completely different reading experience. The descending stairs were unusually long, and there was even a feeling that they couldn't reach the end. When Eugenius stepped on the last step, he didn't know how many days and nights had passed. It was as if he had arrived at the deepest part of the library. There were no direct book displays, and this place didn't look like a library at all. Instead, the air was filled with an ancient, deathly stillness and a seriously decaying aura. Underground prison. Don't tell me that Nicholas sold me out right from the start. Eugenius took out his stone spear and carefully walked in the narrow tunnel. When he passed by a prison cell, the scene inside stunned him. An extremely old, mummified mantis demon was sitting in front of a small wooden table and creating with his body severely bent. He didn't know how long he had been creating, but his wrinkled body had merged with a wooden stool, and his lower limbs were even rooted to the ground. Only the last trace of his weak aura was left. His head was full of scars that were drilled by tentacles or scratched by sharp objects. His entire brain was almost shriveled, and there wasn't much inspiration to squeeze out. But if he couldn't complete the creation and meet the standards of the library, he could only continue to create. The most terrifying thing was, judging from the subtle aura emitted from his body, he was also a mythical body. When Eugenius carefully continued to explore this underground area, he also found a problem. The prisoners here were under a very strict restriction. Their souls were fixed in the cells and couldn't leave at all. But Eugenius wasn't restricted. He could even freely enter and leave every cell. Check the status of his creation. Flip through the articles they created. It didn't even matter how he touched and fiddled with their bodies. Did this guy write that he died here? Eugenius found a fat, blackened corpse lying on a small wooden table. It had directly died while writing. When he went forward to check, the corpse-eating cult ritual that he carried with him actually reacted, which made Eugenius very excited. He immediately changed his attitude and understanding of the library, seeing it as the most rare opportunity. However, what Eugenius didn't know was, because the library system had detected his attributes, compared to reading, he was more suitable for dealing with corpses, filth, and waste. That was why he was arranged here, which could greatly reduce the library's waste disposal work. Chapter 1881. The Second Identity, the Distant Banquet. Indeed, as Han Dong had speculated, he was the curator of the Sereno Grand Library. Of course, the curator's position was not always occupied by him. It could even be said that he was tricked into it. It seemed that the authority was higher and he could gain a position of fame, but in fact, for him, it was a kind of endless restriction. It could even be compared to a prison. Ever since he was tricked into this position by the yellow-robed king, he could no longer get down. When he realized this, the hatred in his heart for the yellow-robed king reached an unprecedented height. This hatred would drive him to kill the yellow-robed king, who was the first identity, at all costs. However, due to the restriction brought by the library, as long as the yellow-robed king did not set foot in the library's territory, he could not do anything at all. Not long after he sat in the curator's position, he ushered in endless dimensional wandering. The endless hatred in his heart was slowly worn down, consumed, and even transformed into something else during the wandering. During the wandering, because he was too bored, the curator gradually began to get tired of venting at the level of desire and slowly calmed down to read the books here. From the beginning, he only picked some of the more interesting books to read, and later, he was no longer picky. He would read any book indiscriminately, and even read the interesting books several times. During the almost endless wandering, the curator could almost memorize 80% of the contents of the books, and the rest of the contents could be easily written out from memory. This kind of meditation, reading gradually changed the hatred in his body. Even the pure evil in his soul was slowly changing. If it was in the ancient era, when this second incarnation had not yet taken the position of the dean, if he saw Han Dong's almost perfect brain with double deliciousness, he would not care whether this brain was related to Gray or not, nor would he care about its identity as the yellow-robed messenger. He would immediately hold a big banquet, fixing Han Dong in the form of a living body in the center, and taste this rare brain in the most delicious and fresh form. But it was different now. When he understood the origin of this brain, he decisively suppressed the most primitive desire. Moreover, when he learned that there were outsiders who had come to this broken dimension and were plundering the ancient relics drifting here, malice and anger rose at the same time, instantly covering the desire for Han Dong's brain. Currently, the curator was in the central workshop, which was covered in giant tentacles and was equipped with the most advanced ancient craftsman's technology. Here, one could control the library in various ways, organize and assemble the interior of the library into blocks. At the same time, a special propulsion technology could be used to allow the library to move up and down between the shattered dimensions. The so-called elevation here was a high-level technique that the curator had discovered over many years. The complexity of the shattered dimension far exceeded that of any other dimension. If this place was simplified into the ocean, most travelers who came to the shattered dimension could only sail on the surface of the sea. Under the curator's control, the library could rise and fall. Tentacles that resembled tongues were released from the brain and connected to the preset giant tentacles. Rumble. The cylinder piston, which weighed thousands of tons, moved up and down under the traction of the prototype. The entire library began to float to the surface. If this group of intruders has the ability, they should be able to locate these little fellows once the library appears on the surface of the dimension. Come on. It's been far too long since I've seen a race other than hybrid demons. Just what kind of people are they? They actually dare to challenge the authority of us hybrid demons. Planet of Plants, according to Yellow Robe's weak senses, the planet was sailing between dimensions, but no matter how fast it advanced, the senses were still weak. It even made Yellow Robe think of giving up. So, if these little fellows die, then they die. I'll just go back and get scolded. Gray and Void shouldn't join forces to kill me just because of two young people, right? Even if they really want to kill me, I can survive through the soul reincarnation. It doesn't matter. The only pity is that my new book, the various frameworks and character designs, as well as the various collected information, most of them will have to be abandoned. So be it. After Yellow Robe figured it out, he directly began the idea of another new book. However, before he officially put pen to paper, buzz, the yellow seal on Han Dong's body instantly expanded, and the distance was not very far. However, Yellow Robe King's body trembled violently, and even some white liquid slipped from his yellow robe and spilled all over the ground. Whether it was the flesh under the yellow robe or the soul core imprisoned in this body, they all showed an extremely shocked, ugly, and even somewhat fearful expression. Along with the establishment of the connection with Han Dong, there was a strong feeling at the same time. This feeling awakened the memories that were sealed in the depths of his consciousness and should have been forgotten long ago. This memory was voluntarily abandoned by Yellow Robe. Even when the shattered dimension was mentioned, he would not associate it with anything at all. Only when the aura of the library and the second identity came together, it was as if a switch was triggered and the memories were reawakened. Yes. The shattered dimension. I was wondering why I felt that this place was very special, as if there was something that I had forgotten. How could it be so coincidental? Why did Nicholas happen to be teleported to the library? Is it the effect of a yellow seal, or is it a mysterious force? He did not continue to think. Yellow Robe King was completely flustered. He did not care about Han Dong's state at all, and tried to control the plant planet to escape at full speed in the opposite direction. However, the plant planet's sensory device also captured the existence of Han Dong, the master. In fact, it captured the brainwaves emitted by Dr. Swollen, and all the operating authority was withdrawn and sealed. Even if Yellow Robe wanted to seize the authority, he could not do it, as it had lost the perception of its master for a long time. The moment it received the brainwave signal, the plant planet directly activated the emergency master search mode. It even further compressed the size of the planet and drove towards the area where the library appeared at full speed. Such an unforeseen event made Yellow Robe collapse on the chair, and all kinds of white spiritual tentacles collapsed on the ground. Yellow Robe was only a soul master, and his attainments in space were only so high. If he abandoned the plant planet and escaped alone, even if he could rely on his superior strength to ensure that he would not be swallowed by the dimension, it would be difficult for him to find the exit of the border back to 01. Sigh, why do I have to participate in this bullsh asterisk T-sharp horn conference? He looked like he had nothing left to live for and no longer struggled on any level of thinking. He had already laid flat and let the situation develop. At the same time, the Rawstone spaceship sailing between dimensions was about to give up on the pursuit of Han Dong. It was also at this moment the bespectacled boss in charge of perception suddenly captured the soul frequency that belonged to Han Dong. Mr. Teacher, the target's perception has suddenly recovered. It's not particularly far from us, and we can reach it within a month. However, the perception this time is slightly different. The soul perception seems to have been blocked. The target should be in a sealed area. Should we go over? Mr. Teacher was suddenly stunned. He suppressed the joy in his heart and gave the order. Let's go at full speed. We can catch this guy and explore an undiscovered hybrid demon relic. How can we give up such a good opportunity? Chapter 1882. During the time when various forces were rushing to the library, Han Dong and Bop were both immersed in the world of books. They knew nothing about the outside world, and they didn't even care about their own bodies. As for Eugene, he was ecstatically retrieving ancient corpses in the underground area. At the same time, this environment, which had been rotten since ancient times and was dirty and smelly, was also very suitable for the cultivation of corpse-eating ritual. After gradually familiarizing himself with this place, Eugene would go to the room where the author was imprisoned every day. He didn't miss a single one of the 1,008 writing rooms. Just like Inspector here, he would inspect them on time. If they died, they would be cleaned up by Eugene in a short period of time. This performance made the library even more determined to keep Eugenius as a permanent employee. Half a month had passed unknowingly. Han Dong, who was immersed in personal stories in the protagonist and first-person mode, was not only used to it, but even obsessed with such immersive reading. And this immersive reading was not as time-consuming as imagined. It felt as if he was following the protagonist of the story through a long life. In fact, it only took 1 to 3 hours of reading time. The efficiency was extremely high. More importantly, the immersive experience of each book could increase the compatibility of the faceless myth by 1 to 5%. At this rate, when Han Dong finished reading all the books here, there was a high chance that the compatibility would be full. Currently, he had finished reading about 15 books. There was still time. Not long after, Han Dong picked up the next white book that was wrapped in a worm's skin. The Fat Life of Brothers, this biography of a character in an almost tragic form, was born as a fat, bloated, and almost useless deformed worm. He was discriminated against and saw the worst and darkest side of the hybrid demons. For a long time, he was even used as a meat source by a meat factory. Every day, a large piece of meat would be cut off at regular intervals. At the same time, all the newly grown skin would be peeled off. Through the stimulation of food and regeneration, he could continue to produce new worm skin and the same amount of meat the next day. Even though he was enduring such pain every day, Han Dong had no intention of ending his reading. In fact, Han Dong was so immersed in this role that he didn't realize that he was reading. He took the initiative to accept this experience of being at the mercy of others and completely integrated into the extremely cowardly character of the protagonist. The story came to an end. It also ended with the tragedy of the protagonist trying his best but still being killed. When he finished reading, keeping the memories of the worm's life, the soul returned to the body. If it was an ordinary person, it was very likely that they would be severely depressed. Even their heart would be affected, and they would become extremely depressed. Han Dong didn't have any expression on his face. When he closed the book, he only closed his eyes and carefully felt the feelings brought by the story, as well as some unforgettable experiences. Yes, not bad. All this suffering was not in vain. This kind of tragic story, as well as the completely different characteristics of the protagonist, brought a full 5% increase in compatibility with the faceless myth. In the future, I would be able to choose more main characters with personalities that were vastly different from mine and experience a completely different disguise. By the way, this worm was far too cowardly. There's no market for this kind of sadistic novel. Let's get another one. Just as Han Dong continued to choose the next book, his thoughts trembled, and he suddenly looked up. This was the first time in half a month that he had felt the fluctuation outside the library. Before that, it had always been in a completely peaceful state. Moreover, the interruption of the reading process was mostly due to Han Dong's subjective wish. He widened his eyes and even opened the entire true demonic eye. Due to the limitations of the library's structure, even the true demonic eye was weakened by the layers of the soul wall. When he peeked into the library where the fluctuation came from, a hazy, celestial phenomenon entered his eyes. At the same time, he vaguely caught the aura of a king being born. Han Dong revealed a heartfelt smile and shook his head slightly. Bop, this fellow actually rushed ahead of everyone and achieved the most difficult breakthrough. Really? Well, when we leave the library, the journey of searching for the remaining pages will be much smoother, and the time taken will be greatly shortened. Bop. His titles included Child of the Void, Misha University's youngest professor, and many hybrid demons even privately believed that Bop was the illegitimate son of the Void Dominator. No matter if it was potential, strength, or intelligence, they were all top-notch. When put together in the past, he would definitely be the #1 existence. Bop, who had long broken through the mythical body after coming into contact with the Destiny event Ladybug game. He gained additional insights that he had never had before, making his mythical path unusually smooth. In recent years, he had advanced by leaps and bounds. Before coming to the Shattered Dimension, he was already at the peak of mythical. Currently, he came into contact with the legendary #1 library and headed to the astronomy library that matched his attributes. He used the spectator mode to examine every famous book here, observing the evolution of different worlds and the most minute changes in matter from the perspective of a bystander. Unknowingly, the membrane that blocked the mythical body had been broken through. The mythical painting scroll that was originally located in the flat space had been completely unfolded in the reading room. Combined with the astronomy library, it formed a unique Star River King's domain that belonged to Bop. Bop had officially stepped into the category of king. Of course, as he did not have a throne, he was currently in the category of false king. Even so, a resplendent pillar of light followed the patio structure of the astronomy library and shot straight into the sky. It even stabilized the dimensional space near the library, giving it normal space-time rules. Far away in the distant world of S01, on the surface of a supergiant planet that defied physics. This planet had almost all the climate and features of all the planets in the universe. At the same time, it also had a representative forbidden area. Here, it was the origin star that was jointly created by many former kings. It could be regarded as a supergiant talent selection game area. It was mainly used for the origin competition, and a selection would be held every 10 years. Currently, in the central plane of the planet, there was a significant stone tablet. It was made of an extremely rare throne origin stone. It was called the Origin Stone Tablet here, and it was used to engrave the name of the current origin. A Kabbalah tree of life was engraved on the surface of the stone tablet, and it was divided into 10 branches. From top to bottom, they were 1. Kether crown 2. Chakma, wisdom 3. Bina, understanding 4. Love, cherish Giejala love 5. Severity, Gebura, severity 6. Beauty, Tifereth beauty 7. Victory, Netza victory 8. Glory, Hod splendor 9. Foundation, Yesit foundation 10. Kingdom, Mocketh kingdom. Currently, it was ranked 2nd. Next to the name of wisdom, Bop. Minda was undergoing changes. The small dot in the middle of its name slowly evolved into a black hole and gradually enveloped the entire second branch. Void Space. Teacher Yu, who was preparing for the handover of various affairs with the Black Tower, also felt something at this moment. There were not many changes in his posture, but his hands paused slightly. It was as if everything was under observation. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.